That's right. Those of you in the chat thought we'd reset the timer again. Didn't expect that, did you, baby? We are back. Thank you for bearing with us. It's been a bit of a wait. We had a couple of server issues, I'm told, had to be ironed out. Perhaps somebody took a ham sandwich and jammed it in there, hoping to lure Janice Joplin in. But either way, we are headed into our final series of this tournament. It's a best of 7. Never mind, man. SSG versus Nightmare. And again, the winner will have that higher seeding, but both of these teams have already secured their attendance in China.
Remind you, first to 4 in this matchup, so we'll be here a bit as it will be SSG's map selection. They will ban the Ramattra here, and it'll be a Pharah ban for Nightmare. Nightmare also, like, Pharah is like one of the heroes we actually haven't seen them play that often. This would actually be quite hilarious, though, is that Nightmare doesn't play malga the entire time and then comes in here and plays malga against SSG after they both in the coaches interviewed agreed to play honest Overwatch. That would be quite hilarious. Quite the heel turn here for Nightmare.
4, 3,
And yet, they might be part of the plan here.
round 1.
So, we'll see Spacestation have been more than happy to take this Winston comp and slam it into every malga look around NA. So this match will be no different. Kafra initially will be suffering the sleep data. CJ has a safe angle here to keep Kellen alive, but can't say the same for Bliss and Seeker.
Yeah, dude,
this is steamrolled.
This is so troll here out of Nightmare. They know that probably SSG's like, oh, there's no way they're gonna play malga on the other side of things. And what do? They come out. Nightmare plays malga. They did not play it at all against Team Liquid. All 3 of the times we saw against Team Liquid, but here against SSG, they pull it out. Also probably know that SSG wants to play some of this dive.
Okay. I mean, perhaps SSG is just straight up not expecting the malga look here, but this is not exactly where SSG want to take the fight.
Why would you expect them to play it? They haven't played it at all.
Again, like, you might have scrimmed these guys, right, and sort of seen this from them. I admit, though, it's quite brazen to sort of bust it out here immediately. I must say.
I mean, look, if you're going to work on it, potentially, right? If you're Nightmare, here's an opportunity to do so. It'll be Kellen, though, getting into the back line on the Winston, and he will end up picking up 2 here. So this should be a point flip in favor of SSG. A pretty decent start, though, for Nightmare.
Okay. Back in control of Spacestation, but like you said, Geronimo there for Kafra wants to get a quick reset. Decent starting for Nightmare, and a decent staging ground as well to start to build a capture off of. Lethal still on his Ash, right, which is maybe what you'd less expect, because it definitely feels like she has a tougher time getting through those Winston bubbles than Sojourner can kind of farm them and use the disruptor shot to chew through them.
And now that the shoe is on the other foot, right? You're like looking at, can CJ hit some of these big bios that can set up like Kellen and Sugar for you to go on in. This will be a nano boost here used onto Kellen, not at that perk level yet where CJ is going to be able to save himself. And this nano not really going to get much.
Coming from this low ground here, has at least able to cycle it into a primal, and SSG at least a flip. So you've got some stall here, but you notice that Kellen just cannot afford to fight a malga and definitely can't afford to go back to the point. So Nightmare back in control with a cage fight now ready. This is like, you know, did you see, when Cena hugged Cody Rhodes and then stabbed him in the back? Heel turn.
Yeah, that's what like the coach's interview was, where they were like, yeah, it's gonna be honest Overwatch, and then just Weeds just stabs Hunter in the back and plays malga to kick things off. It's a cage fight user on the high ground. I don't actually think they've caught anybody in it. Nightmare did end up flipping the point though. It'll be Orbital Ray and Sound Barrier layered on top of each other here for Nightmare.
Seeker's got good position, but yeah, needs to wait out this sound barrier to some degree. Zera has lost the beat, but still healthy enough here to make a deep run with his pulse bomb. Seeker spotted, not committing yet, as a rail there does whistle over Zera's right shoulder. It's going to be Seeker and Sugar Bron down already. Nightmare are not messing about. They've got this Malcolm literally holding out in the back pocket.
Okay,
and they're just getting mileage.
The funniest thing though would be that if SSG decides to mirror it and Nightmare actually looks competent playing the malga, because then it's like, why did they avoid to play it for like the last like 2.5, 3 weeks almost? That'll be a sound barrier here from Bliss. It'll escort everybody here from SSG into the point, as already at 99.
Yeah, big bio there. Nicely done. Good connection on Nightmare. And honestly, Nightmare spent a fair bit of trying to end the round there and then. Spacestation, though, of course, a big bio from CJ will get him a little bit closer to yet another nano. But that's kind of the only notable ultimate that SSG are verging on here.
Honestly, it's just that even the bio, though, being able to kind of like use the bio and then follow up with that nano, the bio alone with these malga compositions, with how good cardiac overdrive is and how impactful of an ability it still is, being able to bio the malga is huge. It's almost like having like a shutdown ult there, as that'll be the bio onto Kuffa. He's taking a lot of damage, but it's going to wear off.
Okay, this is still a good stretch of the fight here for Space Station. Ultraviolet's in trouble. Oh, Kellen, oh, so close to taking the Juno out of the fight. UV, though, is going to have a chance to convalesce and get back in. A big bio, though, is going to punish Cuff at the moment. He pokes his head out of the foxhole. 85 now for Space Station, but they really don't have to do too much else, just trying to lock the game state as it is and not lose any more players. They probably fall to lose one and be fine here. Instead, though, they find Admiral. Look at me, I'm the captain now. They say Bliss will take over, and Space Station should be able to manage this malga comp pretty well. It's a switch to the ball here for Kuffa, but of course it smacks of desperation. Ultraviolet dips a toe in there. Speedy as they are not going to be able to escape the scrutiny of Space Station Gaming. This should be it, and they'll take that first round, albeit a close game, triumphing against the malga look.
And with this map here, right, you can get a lot of high ground access for your Sojourn, and there's just like narrow chokes that the malga has to funnel out of, right? So CJ is able to bio Kuffa constantly, put a lot of pressure on the opposing team's malga. So good start here for SSG. It's Nightmare, I think came out there with that malga. First time we've seen them do it. A little bit of a troll pick potentially, but now Nightmare's looking to match in the mirror.
Kuffa needs a long shower in holy water to wash his hands of that dishonesty. It's going to take more than just the Winston coming crawling back, I think, to assure me otherwise. However, close round. Here on Shrine, no Nightmare say, okay, let's try. Let's match this Winston comp. Let's pit our backline, our Ana, against theirs, and see if Kuffa can't get more value than Kellen. Still, that means a lot is going to really hinge again on this Ash pick. Lethal on this map does like to go away from the Sojourn.
It does feel like it's going to be a lot harder, though, to keep the Ash alive than like a Sojourn, right? Where the Sojourn obviously has the slide, has the burst damage capability to make the Winston kind of thing twice, where the Ash, it's going to be easy to kind of pick off. I mean, you see there, lands a shot onto Seeker, but Seeker just backs up and nothing you can do with this Winston in your face.
Yeah, if you're Sojourn, you're just charging a rail off that bubble there and still having like some real burst threat. It's much more sustained damage over time for Lethal, getting multiple of those dynamite connections. Kellen can't afford to bubble his own team. So that is obviously when you can be on the offensive, when you can sort of set up and get dynamite connections in, then yeah, you're getting value.
The dynamite's usually good, though, in scenarios whereas you see Seeker's actual disruptor shot got stuck to Kuffa up in the sky. The Ash is actually really good in scenarios where teams want to play like close together, right? Okay. Then you can get max value out of the dynamite, where you're not really getting much value out of it now.
Yeah, it's really tough to see how this is the optimal pick for Nightmare. Honestly, in like a full poke comp, in like maybe like a Ramattra mirror or something like that, seems fine. I honestly seems fine, but here is just a huge question mark for me. I've got to wonder whether it's like perk related or something else, but Nightmare, you feel like if they're gonna beat SSG, it probably is through on a comp like this, like a Winston-based comp, and have Lethal just do ungodly things to them.
He's got the one that actually makes the dynamite blow-up range a bit wider. I think it's like 40% off the top. So looking for some big dynamites like you mentioned.
Ultraviolet's down though. I mean, there's nothing for Nightmare to do here. They are letting this round slip away from them. And I think this is probably pretty early to be asking the question, but I want to ask it anyway. Is there a comp where Nightmare are just better than SSG? At all?
I mean, so a comp that you could force, I don't know. Right? I think both these teams actually play pretty similarly. It's just that like SSG, I think probably like a step ahead, right? In a lot of different scenarios where
that's the problem, right? They'd have to win in a mirror, I imagine. And do that one map is fine. Do it 4 out of 7. Different story. UV is dead again off spawn. Kellen just has a sixth sense for the position of that Ana. Oh, that is a lot of value that just got sent over the edge. Admiral credited with about 1,000 points of health worth of kill. And with Seeker going down here, he might have just saved the round for Nightmare. Kuffa has point control, and all Sugar Free can do is nip at his heels.
At least gives Nightmare a chance to get another fight. That's going to be a big bio, though, that connects with Kuffa. He doesn't want to burn the Primal just yet.
Sugar Free forced to recall away. Spacestation, of course. Don't need to waste any time in getting back in. They've got a beat here. Get a good beat, use it aggressively like this, and yeah, go on in. Seeker did not get the sound barrier, though. And now he's under extreme pressure from Kuffer, who is bioed, so yeah, you can turn that into a trade, and Kuffer maybe just a half second too late on getting out. Bob, though, has done a good job of holding the point. The problem is that Space Station are dealing with everything else and then coming home to collect. They've gotten rid of the Winston now, and it feels like a matter of time until Lethal hits a fat dynamite connection onto Seeker. What can be done elsewhere here? He's got Coach Gun available still, but again, there's a trend over towards the Ana, and Ultraviolet is taken down. Slow and steady, Kuffer's going to come back off respawn, but without his Ana. And yeah, and Nanukip Kellen should shift things in SSG's favor, but Sugar Free is dropped to Lethal. It is hard for Ash to handle Tracer.
Yeah, Kellen was actually playing with Sugar Free. They were probably going to dive in there together, but as soon as Sugar Free came out of the room, it was a headshot there from Lethal that's able to finish him off, as now you start to see him connecting with these big dynamites.
That is unreal. It's a huge fight there from Lethal. Kuffer has to try and fight without UV, and I think they're done. If it's not for these Ash kills that are starting to come out. Sugar Free now knows there's probably some work to be done. Looking to work his way probably around the extremities here. And yeah, sees Ultraviolet, and immediately it's a biotic grenade. Over the top, though. Coach Gun will be able to slow the Winston down. Looks like a disruptor shot was stuck on Lethal, so that's a lot of heal pressure being put down. 80% here for Nightmare. They are counting. They are catching up, and they're about to hit 2 support ults, Matt.
And this is going to be the nano boost on Akuffa. He's going to be able to find Seeker, and that's going to be a sound barrier used here towards the end. As you probably figure, Mitch, if you are Nightmare, this is final fight scenario here. So looks like Kuffa's going to be able to make it back, jump over the roof here as let the leap charge again, as it looks like just Sugar Free going to be able to get a touch.
Finally!
Oh no, not able to get it.
Some good fudging food! A Winston Mirror on the pole. We get it in the second round, and Nightmare actually win it out. They show us that they can hang if they just go with the flow. Make use of the Ash play. Oh, buddy, Admiral there in the last few moments of that round also spectacular. As he and UV get their ultimates online just in time.
Yes, you finally, they play the malga there at the start. Does not work out. Now we get into a Winston mirror. The only difference, though, is you're playing the Ash instead of the Sojourn, and you're making it work here for Nightmare. I think this is the point, though, that the Ash could probably be most effective, right? Really long sight lines here. Potentially some serious damage. Lethal could put down over the point.
I like it on Sanctum. That looked really good at the end of that last game where Liquid just did not have an answer. Rose drops down and join the rest of the treasure hoard at the bottom of the pit, and Lethal wants to take a pretty advanced position. Pressure down on that bubble, but Kellen was able to buy enough time for Kuffer to be dragged down by Sugar Free, whereas Lethal could only look on, could not do anything in that early stage of the fight. But Zera has gotten in and dealt with CJ. That is the Tracer pressure combined with the Dynamite.
Yes, the Dynamite perk has actually been pretty impactful, right? Like the burst radius, right, of that Dynamite. You also get ammo refunded as well, right? So Lethal being able to use this Ash in a different way that we really haven't seen a lot of Ash play like we talked about in the previous series in a while, by using it here against SSG, against this dive setup, making it a little bit harder, a little bit more costly, right? Just putting that ticking damage constantly down on these players of SSG, making it costly for them to come in. That's going to be Kellen here with a bio. It's going to have to be CJ using the bio just to keep Kellen up.
I mean, CJ just timed the biotic grenade sort of debuff to the second through a grenade.
Yeah.
Knowing that it would expire. That's like just the little things that you really don't think of that probably keep CJ up at night, if I'm honest. Nicely done, but Nightmare have point control right now, and something will have to be done about Lethal. Still safely here behind the zone as Winston creates, and look at this. We're going around the front line, into the back. Kuffer look at the Seeker. Great sleep, though, there from CJ. They can't kill the Winston here. And Kuffer does not have a primal, so cannot overstay his welcome, but Nightmare have done enough in this round. They've done enough, they're going for more.
Wow, I mean, that is a huge bio there from UV at long range, as that's going to connect with 2 players. They're going to push on in behind it, and when you said, oh, maybe they're not going to push on in, doesn't have primal, they catch SSG off guard. They push directly into the spawn, and Kuffa now with that primal, not going to give up this position.
They're in a good spot. They're still holding on to some key ultimates. Bob comes in. This is a really annoying spot for him to be. Once that bubble gets blown up, Kellen has to move instantly. Into a primal he goes, though, trying to disrupt, maybe get an environmental kill, as Bliss has just done to Zera, apparently. But Bliss loses his life for it. Slept off the point is Kellen, but the rest of his team are able to make the flip. It's a bio, though, thrown defensively by Ultraviolet that forces Kellen to take a sidebar. Kappa's still holding onto that primal from before, is zoning the backline pretty effectively, and sees the Nano go down on Seeker. Wondering maybe if he can knock Seeker into the pit here, put some pressure down on him. Seeker very low, and Kappa's able to finish the job, and it's going to be lethal falling. Seeker eventually found him with a railgun pick off, and SSG still hold the point. CJ, 8 arms it looks like, not enough to peel the pulse bomb off of himself, but Sugar Free finds connection on a Kappa as well. Nightmare just flipped the point, and UV has a Nano should it be needed. Kappa comes back off respawn now, and Zera knows he has to fight. He's been given the Nano to try and contest against Kellen, who doesn't want any of that smoke. He's getting out of dodge, but that stagger kill could be the round and map.
Yeah, no, Kellen does not want to stand there and fight against that Nano Tracer. Seeker just kind of runs around the corner, finds a headshot onto Lethal as we're going to get into OT here for both teams. Keep an eye on the Anas, right? Some big bios have been going down all series long, and that's going to be Seeker with like a direct shot right into Zera, so that should give SSG the point.
Just a little too far, perhaps, there for Zera.
Admiral with a
Kellen
boop?
goes down. Was that a boop off into the pit, or surely just damage from that right click? Unclear. Either way, there's a huge opening here for Nightmare, and they're not going to waste any time. There's no one to create that space for Seeker. Lethal's hit with a Bionade, though, which will keep him quiet for a moment. But that's going to be remediated quickly, and we'll be back to business. Kellen is able to get back now into the fight. So that Bionade buys a lot more time than we sort of realize. Enough at least for Space Station to be at full strength. Disruptor shot stuck to Kappa. He's low, takes it away. Ultraviolet does go down here, and Admiral's on the chase, finds Bliss once more. Now sees the Winston in his way and is trying to work through Kellen, but he's healthy. CJ still standing close to a bio. Up on the point here. We're seeing a flip from Space Station in progress, and Admiral might want to disrupt it. A Bionade connects on a Kappa, but he still wants to fight. Admiral has a beat. He needs to pop it in the open, but he's stuck in the side room. It's too late for Kappa to get the sound barrier, and Nightmare have to reset.
Yeah, you also have a decent amount of time to work with here, though, for Nightmare. So I like the decision not to burn beats. You could have potentially used it there to save Cutfa, but you had to have people like trickling in off a spawn. You could get a better use of it here. Something also to note, the dynamites that Lethal keeps putting down, right? It's a ticking damage, but it also kind of sometimes forces CJ to use the bio more defensively, right? To give kind of healing to the rest of the team as opposed to using it like more proactive on an offensive end.
Kellen pops a primal before he touches down. I have to wonder if that's to counter a sleep dart that might have come his way. Anas both go down to pulse bombs though. Sugar Free and Zera doing it, but Lethal just gets turned into a smear on the wall above the point. Seeker is down though. It's a legitimate, bona fide 2v2, but Kuffa's got the primal and it's looking to chase Kellen down. Nightmare don't control the point right now, but it's being flipped as we speak, and Kuffa's made the space for it. Sugar Free steps on, forced a recall. In comes Kellen, and Zera gets flattened. Now it's up to Admiral to try and stall things out to avert the flip, but he just dangles too long in front of Sugar Free and is removed by the Tracer. Bliss is trying to get away, and frankly Kuffa can't chase him. UV throws a bio down, but Lethal gets picked up by Seeker at long range, and Bliss has the beat to end it. Inside the bubble, he just doesn't care. 4 players benefit on the side of Space Station Gaming, and they group to bring Kuffa down. It's as close as you can ask for, folks. Zera's going to try and step under to the point, but has to recall basically immediately as UV throws that bio in. Overtime still going. Desperately Zera touched the point, but not for long enough. What a close first map. Nightmare can hang, but SSG clinch it.
It goes right down to the wire. I think the biggest kill there, though, is Seeker with a headshot onto Lethal as soon as he gets Bob. You would have had the Bob that would have went over the point there, while Kuffa still has that nano on him on the Winston, and that kill from Seeker is absolutely massive as the DPS for SSG just go absolutely massive, right? A lot of times both these teams trading their supports right away. It comes down to those Tracers, Sojourns, and, you know, the Ash on the side of Nightmare, and for that first map, it was Seeker and Sugar Free come out on top.
Man, we get a legitimate dive mirror between the two best teams in NA, and it's electrifying. It's close, it's exciting, and it's extremely volatile like we talked about earlier. The element that the Sojourn brings is something that cannot be predicted. Sometimes there's a ridiculous headshot that comes in from someone like Seeker that turns the game on its head, and it's the kill on Lethal, who has Bob ready, that clinches it.
Yeah, I mean, you get that Bob over the point, right? It's a completely different ball game where you're able to kind of have the Bob contest. You can kind of cycle it out. Let's take a look at some of the highlights here. Round number 1. This is where Nightmare kind of shocked all of us, right? They came out and played some malga, and SSG was able to deal with it in the end. And then the second round, right, when we went into that dive head-to-head, this is where Nightmare, you were like, oh, is there a comp they can come out and potentially be better on? And they looked like the better dive team, at least in the second round. That was a sick shot there from Lethal.
Oh, that was a legitimate boop. Oh my God, Admiral doing so much to get Nightmare within literal centimeters of being able to take down SSG in this game. UV knows he's cooked there, still throws an aid. Buddy, I'm so glad to see this. Both these teams have left their best for last here. Clearly, that extra 10K in the seeding means a lot to them because it's all being left out there.
You didn't want to watch the Malgas just stand there and just unload clips into each other's faces. You wanted this instead. No, I'm kidding. We all want this.
I'm here for this. And I want them to keep it coming. This is kind of what I'd hope to see with Nightmare able to overcome the dishonest Malga comp in that previous game here. Show us a great match. And again, I hope that they believe in themselves enough to keep pushing this. I also think that this sets a really interesting tone for what the bans might be in these coming maps.
Like I could see them banning like a Winston, for instance, right? Like in trying to make like more of a Ramattra type of game. Route 66 will be the pick here for Nightmare. Curious what they decide to go with in terms of like the ban. Like you could ban Genji here, you could ban the Kiri if you're trying to play something along I know like the with more dive centric with like the Ana in the mix, right? Take that cleanse out of the way. A lot of different options, right? Especially when you're not forced to kind of target that malga potentially. So it is a Winston ban. So kind of like I was just talking about, potentially a Winston ban.
Nice.
This is so an Ana ban on the other side. So what you're looking at, like Kiri, Lucio, different type of compositions, right? Maybe we have some Juno Brig scenarios, right? You can play Malga with this. We'll see where this kind of decides to go now. Interesting that they banned the Ana, because typically Ana and Winston have kind of gone, side by side with each other.
I'm actually wondering maybe that like SSG don't want to see like a Hazard Ana based composition here. Probably feel that like if it is going to be a map where Malga gets forced, they want to have the edge. They want to force the Malga comp, I think, if they have to. That might be the difference between these two. If we end up getting situations like this might be the only map I think where Winston just doesn't make sense.
I mean, Hazard doesn't have like the vertical capabilities as like a Winston. I think that's like one of the major kind of differences with him, is like he has mobility, but it's not really like vertical in the sense that he's able to like you wouldn't play Hazard on like a Gibraltar or anything like that, right? Or even like Dorado, we see Hazard like really like rarely kind of used, where this you would like a Winston, right? Like the Winston leap can kind of cover those like large grounds, to the high ground. I mean, we haven't seen much. Like you could play like D.Va here potentially, right? We've seen D.Va in some of the other regions, but yeah, I think these teams are going to play probably either Malga, or maybe we see them try and play Hazard.
Yep. Yeah, quite possible. I don't know if we've seen a ton of that from SSG recently. I also would suggest the Ana ban is to like deny potential. Can we try and force ball on first?
Kellen can play ball, right? I mean, we've seen Kellen do that in the past, right? But you would play
Ana to have to deal with. I think that's kind of favorable, right?
You'd play ball with like a what do you play it with, right? Do you play it with like a Lucio Kiri? Do you play it like in that kind of shell? Curious how this one ends up, right? Typically we usually see like the Winston kind of paired with the Ana, but both of them kind of gone. Zen also capability, right? We see Zen on like Havana, but if you feel confident enough to hold the high ground, you can play the Zen. So Nightmare actually will play the Hazard here on D. So Hazard probably works a little bit better on defense here than offense, because you can actually, you don't need access to like big Earls per se, right? Where SSG could fully come out on like a Malga comp.
And let's listen to SSG now, coming off a very close map win. They are going to roll the Malga out here without Winston in the wild. Wonder what the plan is, right?
They're holding spawn with Haz.
You bomb B! You bomb B! Wakanda forever! Wakanda forever!
Hazard again.
Hazard top. Look at Hazard. Has one.
maybe 알고 나 루시오. I try 루시오.
알고 있으면 메인.
Solar top left.
I'm
Solar
already
top.
window. Yeah. 와.
Get him in. Let's go. Top right.
설번 라메 뱅고.
해저돈.
Walk
Push, can you push?
야야 can
push?
헤드비야.
모두
설번 있었어.
갈.
We got 3 trades. Just Lucio again, G.
Yeah, they have to know a little bit.
You know, an SSG team, one coach by Hunter will never do like a 1, 2, 3 fighting at the start of the game. I guess it was half right.
Yeah.
Did they just say Wakanda forever?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. I believe that's kind of what they're rallying around. So they play the malga here at the start. No like Sombra on the opposing side, right? For Nightmare, they will continue to play lethal on the Sojourn. I think you need the Sojourn to kind of control high ground, like also be a threat, just kind of putting down damage consistently, because the Malga can't access that high ground, right? So it's kind of free damage you think you can put down, but man, SSG just kind of tearing through them here at the moment. Is you're going to get very close, probably going to get the first checkpoint off of this.
But here's the risk of playing that close hold with this Hazard comp, is that when you respawn, you can't quickly assume high ground. So you will have to fight Malga where he's strongest. Whereas if you simply like hold Big Elsa and try and stall the cart, like there's a chance that like you can actually abuse that high ground. The way that Nightmare played, they couldn't really, you know, make use of the verticality at all. They never got back in time to play from up on high.
No, and then now you're going to kind of have to be quite aggressive and proactive, right? With like the orbital ray and then the downpour here, where for SSG, you really had to use absolutely nothing into that. So what? You're going to have to get aggressive for Nightmare with some of these ultimates because you don't use them kind of more on the defensive side of things. And then for SSG, right, you're going to have like a blade and cage to use potentially here. So Cufflin's are just trying to push Seeker out, but he's going to get right back in the action rather quickly. It'll be overclocks from both Sojourns here. Beats in response as well.
Seeker here just trying to stay out of the way to speak, but Zera's going to get caught out. It's honestly a torpedo that claims him, just takes a little bit too much damage there, and Seeker is in a very aggressive position. Space Station here are really happy to run with the momentum they happen. Nightmare used both of those support ultimates in a fight that went horrifically for them.
Well, and kind of terribly here for Nightmare is you have like blade cage available, no sound barriers on both sides. So I guess in theory, right, Zera could end up pulling out his blade inside of the Kellen cage fight, but would be extremely dangerous. Is Lethal going to make the change over to the Ashe yet again? So I feel like more Ashe in this series than we've seen in the last like 2 weeks. He takes a railgun shot from Seeker, 17 HP, health pack not there, so going to take a while for him to get back into the action. And guess what? He's not going to get back in the action. Sugar Free pushes right into him.
Charlie Niner?
Yeah, you know, hey, look, they were going for the back line and forgot that the front line was moving the cart. So that'll be the second checkpoint here.
Tony Romo of Overwatch, everybody.
SSG's just running it down. I mean, they still hold on this blade. I mean, when like Sugar Free is probably just waiting to get a good use out of it. What the previous fight, they just kind of ran them over. Then now they see dying, they don't even get there, right? So no opportunity to use it. Now we're getting a Ramattra swap here from Nightmare as Sugar Free ends up popping the blade. Okay, so he's gonna be able to get lethal, but okay, so you do have finally Nightmare push in, and they're able to deal with the support.
Okay, so SSG here, well, probably considering pushing up there, but Sugar Free goes from Sugar Bron to Sugar Bronny in a matter of seconds. SSG are definitely gonna have to make another pass at this, but
you watch what you say about Bronny, man. I mean, you see what happened with Stephen A. He got rolled up on. I mean,
you do it. Stephen A. who got $100 million a year contract. I hope I end up like Stephen A. Are you kidding me?
You're
gonna roll up on me then. Back up the Brinks truck while you're at it.
Please do.
My goodness. As I was saying, Bliss with a beat here. Sugar Free a little exposed, yeah, in that position. I think tries to fall back, or at least there isn't really a link up between what the Genji and Malga are doing there.
I don't think they actually expect them to kind of like push in. I think SSG feels like they're probably safe playing from that position and farming up like orbital ray or sound barrier, and then also your overclock at the time, where Nightmare actually they get kind of on the offensive and take the pace to them. I do wonder also, like, obviously I think this is a pretty poor map for it, although it is like the Nightmare pick. I think this is a pretty tough map to play like Hazard on, is like Kellen gets to stomp on a lethal. I wonder what this kind of says about that Hazard into that Malga, like more long term.
Yeah, exactly. It's less about the map as well, Matt, just the fact that the matchup in general. I don't think that it's a great sign that Nightmare are switching, over towards this style, and SSG, it does take him a fight or so. That kill on CJ is actually pretty impactful. That is a beat for Zera's blade. kind of vibe. And Admiral still just gets caught out in the open. Huh?
Yeah, I think they actually think that potentially if you beat and Blade there, maybe you actually get the beat out of Bliss. But there's, I mean, what? It was like a 2v3, 2v4 at that moment. There was really no pressure on the SSG to have to use that. And now you're going to have this sound barrier to use at your discretion here. Ooh, that's a nice shot there from Lethal as they're going to use that sound barrier to keep Seeker up as he's got overclock.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to come at Seeker, you've got to finish the job. The issue is okay, they're kind of running out of steam here. Seeker is in a pretty aggressive position, but there's just no chance of him getting healed. No water on the field, so he was very, very deep. This is slowed up here for SSG. Nightmare switch over towards the Ramattra comp is probably going to yield him yet another fight win here, Matt, as well. This Annihilation will be a problem.
Yeah, the sight lines here have been a bit better here for Nightmare, right? You can kind of create more space between, obviously, the Ramattra and the malga with just like that free reign of the hallway, and then also now for Lethal, right? Natural high ground here for the Ashe. Really difficult sight line to cross as you see getting a lot of help here, but not able to keep Lethal up.
Yes, the angry Annihilation inside the cage fight. Zera does well to find two amidst that. And SSG just spending so much time turning around, boxing in shadows here. We're back to spawn once more, 52 on the clock.
Does SSG, do you just play like a I mean, you're probably not going to change now because of like perks and whatnot. Do you just play like a Winston-based setup here? Okay, so no, Winston's banned, so yeah, you have to play Hazard, right? So you could have played potentially like a Diva, but it'll be a Hazard in play here now going into this round. You would have played the Winston here. I mean, the Winston would have been awesome here. We've seen them go to this.
This is throwing back to like the early Juno days where it was like Juno and Ramattra comps really abusing the orbital ray. Back when it was even more powerful. SSG won the Hazard. Blade here for Zera. Could be a game ender. Sugar Free has one to work with as well. Orbital rays and blades for both sides. This is about as even as you can get in terms of ult economy. And it's time to pop them. Sugar Free's holding onto the blade, and maybe he'll regret it now as Zera gets in and gets the job done. Sugar Free has his legs cut out from under him now. And Zera's able to get enough done here, I'd say, for Nightmare to hold. Vortex will be nipping at the heels of Kellen's Hazard, and that is that, folks. Space Station only advanced so far into the last phase.
I think Sugar Free's idea there is to wait out the orbital ray or wait it out as long as possible. But when you lose your Juno, there's not a ton of healing to provide to you and the rest of the team, right? So at that point, there's just a lot of damage coming down at the other team's orbital ray and blade rolling. He takes one swipe of the blade from Zera, and that's good enough to finish him off there right after he ends up popping his. So the idea is to wait that orbital ray out a little bit and then get more value out of the blade in the long run. But because also you have the advantage of being the close spawn, right? But not able to make that play work.
There's definitely a feeling like, I mean, Lethal really got to ease into the last few moments of that map. I think Bob is, extremely powerful against hazard comps for like the same reason why Torp turret is really annoying for him to deal with. And he had a lot of space. Like at no point is, Kellen really able to access the Ashe's Purge. So Lethal's just, getting dynamite after dynamite in, just quietly having like a pretty distinct impact over those fights. And when push comes to shove, like you mentioned, Sugar Free waits out the orbit array or tries to, but Zera knows that in that moment he's got a real chance to catch the people on the vestiges or the fringes of the ray, the people that aren't able to benefit from the healing, and he does perfectly.
Yeah, it's just the annoying damage that comes down from the dynamite, a lot like how you mentioned, where it's similar to like a Torb turret. And the one we've seen actually Lethal be going towards is like the dynamite has a 40% increased detonation radius and refunds ammo when it's thrown. So able to fire more shots, able to get a wider connection on the dynamites against compositions that are sometimes harder to get a lot of value, right? Because everybody's so spread out. Is Lethal will take out CJ off the rip here. So the Ashe definitely paying off.
I feel like if we look back over the series and let's say Nightmare, get close or they win it, I feel like the Lethal Ashe pick is going to be one of the most forefront things in our mind of something that's a little bit,
well, because also
the wall, but gets like a huge amount of impact.
Banning Ashe for Nightmare for SSG would also feel kind of bad because it's not like it's impactful, but like is the Ashe the reason you would lose? Like I don't necessarily believe so. So that would kind of be like one where you're like, okay, this damage is annoying. Like, could you just replace this with a Torv and get like similar type of like effects with just like kind of the annoying chip damage potentially? But there's a long range ability that's going to be Bliss falling here, and you have a few players weak as well. Sugar Free taking a lot of damage early on.
Yeah, Kellen gets that high ground. He's there until he's not. He has to turn tail and run back. It's there's more ult charge being accrued there by Lethal, who's at 75 already. So should tell you everything you need to know about how effective the Ashe has been here. Zera's got to respect the stop, is off the ground. Cuffer, though, can't say the same for them. They ultimately get caught out. Zera, though, really happy to play like this mid-range shuriken poking game, building towards that next blade here. Deflect timing is good, and he's going to be able to slip away and get the mega. But the fight, unfortunately, will be holding stasis. Nightmare have to retreat.
And we do see a lot of teams, though, get held at this exact point, though, right? So for Nightmare, you want to break this as fast as possible. We'll see if they're able to do so, because you're coming up on a huge fight, right? Everybody on both sides basically going to have ultimates across the board. And we'll see what angle Nightmare tries to take this in terms of their attack, right? This is going to be some really good natural high ground for SSG. So now they move underneath Big Earls, right? So one way you can kind of force them down is getting up on top of it, and Zera's going to go in with a blade straight away.
Yeah, I mean, Blitz should be thankful. No chance of an Ajax there. He did not have the beat available. Sugarfree's able to get his one, but that is all he's going to take away from this. Definitely a must-win fight for Nightmare, otherwise things get pretty dire on this first phase of the map. They win it cheaply, and they come back in with double support ultimate annihilation.
And I was a bit surprised that Sugarfree decides to invest the blade there, right? Because there was no chance, really, of them winning that fight, right? You had already lost Bliss really early on. He was coming back off the spawn. I mean, maybe he's in a position where if you're able to get a kill, Kellen stays alive, you come back and, like, beat and kind of save the day. But still, it feels like you didn't really get any value out of that because you didn't even get sound barrier out of the Nightmare. So Nightmare holds on to their sound barrier here going into this one. Seeker will use the overclock, but not really given any like lines of sight as Cuffer being so aggressive here on the Ramattra.
Yeah, Cuffer just swatted CJ running into the backline virtually, albeit from that high ground. And Seeker never had line of sight because of all the zoning, the space that the Ramattra took up. Lethal, on the other side, though, is in this incredibly audacious position on top of the saloon. And that can be a real nuisance, controlling the space, throwing dynamites into that one sort of, high ground access point for Space Station Gaming. This is scary stuff, especially because both those support ultimates and the Annihilation are there. They are waiting to be used. SSG only have a beat. That's not going to be enough. And Kellen has to hope this cage fight breaks up the old efficiency. But it looks like he's just using it to stay alive and maybe catch Cuffer out. But there's a raid. Cuffer going to be basking in it. Healed up now as the beat comes in, and the Annihilation has to be used for the durability. Admiral beats here. It's about keeping Cuffer alive, and now they can actually go on the offensive with that Ramattra ultimate. They will. Cuffer drops to the low ground, but still has to respect what the malga can do to him, so spends much of this time slurping away at his essence and throwing up the dukes to block this damage out. He could use some help, though. Problem is, Lethal's dead. Not there to help bring down the malga, but Sugarfree and co arrive to help.
In that type of scenario, right, where you're like forced to play on the objective, the Annihilation is just massive. And they did a really nice job, Nightmare, being able to keep Cuffer alive. I mean, they don't even have to use the beat when the cage fight is going down. Kellen now will switch over and try and mirror this Ramattra, but Cuffer looking fantastic. The support line as well from Nightmare doing a great job keeping him up through a lot of these tough scenarios, and that's going to be Lethal getting a pick right away. Zera going to use the blade, just trying to chase down Bliss. Nightmare has a chance. 3:21 on the clock. A lot of time here to get to that checkpoint.
And welcome to Wonderland, folks, because we are looking at a Ramattra mirror here on Route 66. We've seen Space Station go that way. Now realizing the Malgus is not really getting them there. They keep getting pushed back, and now they've got a hold for... we need a fuller hold here, virtually. I know this is on an escort map, but 3 minutes on this corner. Space Station going to get real comfy if they have any hopes here of winning this map. In goes Admiral, though, aggressive as you like. Orbit Array forced out, and Admiral doesn't quite respect the crackback enough, especially amplified as it was. Sugarfree has a dash here, but knows there's no need to overextend and maybe die. Still eats the dynamite here. Part of a healthy and balanced diet, apparently. And we'll get back to the fight. Stop this car from pushing any further.
Not really getting much value out of the blades, right? Ended up kind of using their God on in, but do you lose Bliss here? Now Nightmare, you're just gonna take a beat, right? You're gonna wait for a second here. You're gonna let some of the players get back, and now you're gonna be able to move in here behind your own Lucy. You have a little bit of a window of opportunity.
Kellen's playing for an annihilation here. He's going to have it, but Seeker's in trouble. And yes, the torpedoes always seem to catch the player straggling on low health. Nightmare at some point. Yep, there we go. Return to the card and start to push it in. And now SSG are locked in their own spawn. Here comes Kellen. Annihilation available, but there's no support ultimates to play with. And that'll be that, folks. An exciting finish here to Route 66. But we see the Ramattra comp beat out the Malga look.
You were wondering, like, hey, are we going to get some kind of different looks here? And the hazard comp doesn't work, but the Ramattra on defense ends up paying off. I think the Ashe has definitely been quite impactful here as well. Enough that actually forces SSG and Kellen to switch over and mirror that Ramattra. So Nightmare, although map 1, they kind of go down to the wire. It was like really back and forth, actually, map number 1. Map number 2, they're able to complete the objective there at the end, win it. Now the map selection ban process will go back in favor of SSG, but a really interesting map, really interesting bans as well.
Hey, I mean, obviously we see Nightmare start with the hazard comp, right? No Winston on this map. I mean, it is crazy. Nightmare have just won the map on which Winston is banned, which is a pretty big deal for them here, especially if that's a comp they want to keep going back towards. The Ramattra beating up the Malga comp is just not something I had on my bingo card, because up until this point, we had the base assumption that it can't win against Malga. Not a team of this quality around the Malga either.
I think though, like, okay, so I think the Ramattra works a little bit better when you have like some of these like longer sight lines, like corridor type of areas, right? Where if things are a little bit more close quarters in that sense, like that's where Hazard I think can really shine, because he's just chaos in your backline. I mean, especially when you're not playing, I mean, you're not going to play like a Brig in this, right? So, and also Anna's banned, so no real opportunity there to kind of like slow down that Hazard. But in these types of long areas, the poke from the Ramattra is very strong, especially with the shield.
And here are your post-game stats here. SSG running it down a little bit there in those last couple of moments, and geez, I kind of feel bad for cursing the boy now, but Sugar Free is struggling to really break through with a lot of those blades, take over the fights. A lot of the times we had matched order race, and actually the support ultimates were synced up for a lot of the game. But you can see how powerful that Annihilation can be. Zera even using it when he's like pushed super deep into enemy territory inside a cage fight. He's like, I just got a cage fight out of Kellen. So he pops the Annihilation, he gets a kill. Zera comes in, finds 2 more, and all of a sudden, it's another soft push here for SSG, who are admittedly looking a little sloppy. And we heard the jabs from Unter at the start of this game, man. It looks like Nightmare is showing their scrim performance in this match as well.
And it's not just the money on the line, right? The seeding for the Champions Clash is like almost more important in a way, because you have the capabilities, right? If you get like a number 1 seed here, right? You play against whether it be like a China number 2 or Asian number 2, right? So like, one of those second seeds. So getting that advantage, right? We saw Alcatia finish second in EMEA, right? So the level of opponents just going to be completely different, right? Maybe not if you get Korea number 2, that would be a bit unlucky, but any of the others, you feel like it's going to be a little bit of a different gap in terms of competition versus, having to play one of those number 1 seeds at top.
Absolutely. Now, I should let you know, while we got a moment here, that Calling All Heroes is returning in 2025. We're not too far away from registration for the first event of the year, which is the Radiant CAH Academy 101. Now, I've worked with Radiant before in other games. They're great, and also players competing in their tournaments have also had very good things to say about them. So, March 26th, get yourself verified and register if you are eligible to compete by March 24th to participate. There's a Discord you can join up there, so you can sort of find that. I'm not going to spell the link out to you because it has a bunch of letters and stuff in there, but maybe we can get that in the chat for you guys. And check that out if Calling All Heroes is something you're interested in. Do go
awesome program. Awesome program. We're actually seeing more players from Calling All Heroes find their way into the top echelons of like OWCS as well, right? So it's awesome to see that crossover.
And stage 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Head over there. Sure, we've got someone in the chat. Get that Calling All Heroes Discord. Remember, you've got to be verified, of course, before you can compete. So get that done by March 24 if you want to play. Okay.
You think you boss people around here? You're just like, oh yeah, somebody go get that in the chat. Somebody go do this. I mean,
yeah. Do you know who I am?
Who do you think you are? I mean, you're the Australian guy.
Unfortunately, it's very apparent to me who I am. I am. At this point, I ain't changing. I'm just saying, we're trying to help people get to where they need to be.
True, very true.
Where I need to be is in the middle of another dive mirror. This one, though, might be a Genji-dominated one, as Tracer is banned.
Yeah, so and a Kiri ban as well, right? So the bio nades now from the Ana, no opportunity for the cleanse to be on the other side. We'll see how that impacts things. Also now, right, with no Tracer, like Nano Blade up on the menu, right? Potentially, we've seen like the Nanos mostly go over to like Winston's really throughout the entire time. So SSG will come out. They'll play Genji composition. Seeker's just going to use TP, then we're going to get a swap here. Is Nightmare playing the Ashe? That's really been kind of the main difference between this series and like a lot of their previous ones, right? We've seen Lethal play a lot of the Sojourn, now here in the finals, busting out the Ashe.
Lethal has great uptime in general because he keeps returning ammo to the mag with these dynamite connections. So I'm here for it. Really enjoying the Ashe play. We'll probably have a discussion about some of the perks as well at a later time, maybe in this map, because obviously she brings some heat to the table there too.
I mean, he's using like the coach gun one that like constantly pushes him like further away, right? So not exactly a dash like a Sojourn per se, but gives himself a little bit more space when Kellen or Co dives in. And then the one with the extended dynamite range finds that one to be quite good.
Yeah, it's like you get 3 ammo refunded when you throw the dynamite, importantly, when you throw it. And then a 40% increased detonation radius. So really just making it much more powerful. The other major perk there, it kind of requires you to be hitting those headshots, which at this pace of game is really, really hard. Hello, Spacestation. You guys are in a bit of trouble here. What's going on? Nightmare really sort of controlling this space all so effectively. Lethal looking proud as a peacock up there on the rafters.
He's able to just control the high ground with the Ashe, and then also like one shot into Seeker gets him extremely low, and then the dynamite's just constant annoying chip damage that you have to heal up here, right? 2 players get hit with a dynamite here, you're gonna have to wait a second, like let them heal up, forces CJ to use the nade on a more defensive position, right, rather than kind of throwing it directly at the opponents. Is right there, right? Sugar Free takes a load of damage, potentially would have went in here. I mean, dude, this is poor from SSG, right? That's a nano that's used on a Kellen, bioed, slept straight away. Sugar Free would have most certainly have gone into the high ground with Kellen there, but Sugar Free is hit with a dynamite and then just one shot from the Ashe and falls over. So this first flashpoint's all Nightmare.
They have looked so dominant. At no point, Matt, have they gotten close enough to even lay a scratch on Lethal. Not a hair on his head was harmed in the filming of that first flashpoint. Nightmare take that one away all too comfortably, and of course are in a position to snowball this old advantage, including a nano difference that owes to CJ throwing one to Kellen, who just got slept by my goat, UV.
So we'll see UV actually throw the bio nade in there. Not able to get a line of sight there on Zera. Zera gets quite low, but it doesn't even need it, right? I mean, it looks like this is going to be another fight win here, potentially for Nightmare, as CJ in a world of trouble. Nobody there able to help him.
SSG already struggling with the pace of the game here. They are trying to put pressure down on UV. You saw it. Obviously, that Bionade like just hit the shield. Good timing from Kellen. That was totally fine, but the crackback from Cuffer absolutely bringing the thunder here on this Winston. And Nightmare just chilling down these big support ultimates. They obviously make use of the Primal so effectively in that last fight here. They've got a veritable war chest to lean on. Here's a beat from Bliss. Does get that down. Catches onto only 3 though, not CJ or Seeker crucially. And the Bob just ends the fight on the spot, apparently. No one wants to tangle.
And no beat have to be used there by Nightmare in response, right? The Bob just kind of gets in the middle. I believe also Kellen hit with a bio there, so not able to kind of react. Ooh, Admiral's got to be careful. Bio and some big shots as they're going to have to use the nano on a Cuffa to push on into the back line.
Slick moves from Admiral, but it's a right click from Kellen across on the point that catches it. But Cuffa, I think you're happy with this trade. I mean, bro, he is tied on the backline for so long. The healing, though, an issue for Cuffa. UV does not have a bead on him, but Nightmare aren't in a position where they're at risk of losing the point anytime soon.
No.
They're coming to the next fight with a beat and blade combo. Bliss cannot answer Zera's blade here. Nightmare are advantaged when it comes at least to those ultimates, but it's the overclock from Seeker that could throw a spanner into the works.
UV on a little bit of an off angle. That connects on a bio on the Seeker. You're not able to follow it up just yet, but this is a sick blade from Zera.
The follow-up is so good. The bio is incredible to open things up, but Zera gets in there. Beat from Admiral is pretty darn crucial. And Spacestation are floundering, struggling here to have any impact at all. And Suravasa, that's another flashpoint that just gets ripped out from under them.
Well, you were asking me a little bit earlier, right? Like, oh, is there one composition that you think that, Nightmare would have like a distinct advantage over? Like, you wouldn't have said anything like Winston-based, right? But at least here on Suravasa, it looks like there's a bit of a gap right now, man, as Cuffa takes out Sugar Free. So this is looking pretty ugly for SSG. It has been as good of a performance from Nightmare as you could want. This Cuffa's going to use the Primal here, trying to find Bliss. I think he's just going to have to focus on getting out with his life at this point.
Okay. That doesn't particularly advance. Oh, okay, scary. Fire there on Seeker. This doesn't quite advance the win con here for Nightmare having to use that primal, but keeps Cupper alive for now. They use it very tentatively. He is under pressure. Do his healers see him? They do now. Look at all that pressure, though, being put on Cupper means that Zero doesn't get the healing he needs, and I'm sorry, but no Coach Gunner's going to keep you alive there. Spacestation, great start to the fight, and again, it's almost a mirror of what we saw on the last Flashpoint map, where Nightmare commit only a primal to win a clean fight and start in control.
Yeah, but for SSG here to be able to win that fight just off of that primal and then also have, you know, they had everything going into that fight, right? And you know that Nightmare's kind of depleted all their resources going into this. Now, like, for SSG, it's like, okay, can we win this next fight pretty cheaply and then set us up into a point where, yeah, you can invest in that final fight potentially on the point.
Now, if Zero, no blade to back this up, though. Still draws out the sound barrier. Seeker still goes down. Oh, my goodness. No blade required. This guy's wit is sharper than any kitchen implement you could find. Sugar Free Low still dealt with. Dunked on by the young thug. Nightmare now with point control, but Kellen being alive is an issue.
You saw
Admiral
Cuffer here,
definitely
though.
has to respect it, but Cuffer's found CJ here. I think Nightmare are coming home to roost pretty soon.
Yeah, it'll be Kellen on the point here. We'll see, though. Looks like actually Bliss going to go knock a player back. Yeah, so Cuppa looked like he was actually going to go in here, potentially get a touch, and just booped on back because you're going to be able to bounce back here with Nightmare having this blade at their disposal.
Cuppa's getting healed up nicely there by UV. But here comes Seeker now. They're disrupting that Ana line of sight. Kellen also going quite low here. And eventually UV goes down. But it takes all the King's horses and all the King's men to get it done. Lethal down to a deflect, but Nightmare did flip the point, and Sugar Free's in no position to take this one back by force. He's going to have to wait. Maybe he can work an angle here with Bliss, but Cuffer is still out there. He's low, but he's out there.
Dude, those shots by Seeker that were nutty, right? He's able to get UV, just kind of a little bit of a flick as he runs on by him. And then that Zera using the blade, tries to get right up in into Seeker's face and just takes him out.
Sugar Free ends up going down there. Flip here on the point being attempted by Nightmare to try and take the map away, and UV's down. CJ would have to be extracted here as an even trade, and there's nothing he could do about it. Cuppa combining with Zera to claim the honor. Attempted a flip, but it's not to be. Seeker's forced to slide on away, and now things get a little bit dicey. His Space Station won't have a chance of competing for the map. They need to not get staggered, but Seeker had no choice. He's down. 95% and counting for Nightmare. They're in a great spot, albeit no ultimates to work with, and Kellen has to try and stall this. So in we go. Dives in with the primal. Make a little bit of space. Creates some chaos here. UV looking straight at him now as Kellen is going pretty low. Dangerously low, in fact, and now a bio catches onto him. Is there anyone to chase the Winston kill? You better believe it. The thunder from down under descends upon the enemy Winston and brings him to heal. Now Nightmare can clean up the scraps as they sweep Space Station away on Suravasa, going to a 2-1 lead.
That was clean there from Nightmare. That Winston ban on the previous map, right? Not available anymore. And you see in that Winston head-to-head, dude, Nightmare is so well drilled. One thing the Ashe does as well that we haven't really talked about is like Sugar Free can play the Echo really well. And you're not really going to play that Echo into the Ashe on the other side. It's a real easy target for the Ashe. So we saw him switch to it there at the end. That's maybe something they try and get into the series here a little bit later on. But man, Nightmare looking fantastic as Zero and Co. I mean, dude, that would be such a crazy story, right? We're talking about like who's going to be number one in NA going into the year, right? And it's like SSG and Team Liquid, right? We're talking about even Timeless because their performances last year. And then Nightmare just kind of comes out of nowhere and puts it together at the end because they look so good at like many different comps, right? It's not just like one tricking a ball. It's not one tricking a malga. They look great playing just about everything.
I mean, it's been astonishing. For me, like the success story, I think, is that every player in Nightmare has kind of earned themselves a degree of notoriety, you know, over the years. But Kaffa definitely was probably flying under the radar a lot of the time, especially with a lot of the very good Korean tanks in NA,
yeah.
Right? And we struggled to sort of find his spot, but now that he has the chance to represent this team, this guy he's still young. Bear in mind, but he was representing Australia at the World Cup years ago, like 3 years ago, back when we actually did that. Bring that back, by the way. And, you know, right now he's taking over the game. He's dominating Kellen, who is a veteran of OWL, who's won a contenders title.
Yeah.
He's been a runaway, for God's sake. Like, Kellen has kind of done it all here, and he is taking him to task, bro. He's giving him a paddling in some of these fights.
Imagine, though,
crazy.
I imagine this is how this Nightmare team though looks behind the scenes, because when we've interviewed Zera in the past, right, he's like talked about like, oh, if we like kind of play like how we scrim, like we're gonna be fine. Like they felt like they were like beating everybody up pretty badly, and then even Hunter kind of alluded to it, like, oh yeah, you know, they're great in scrims, but can they put it together in the actual games? Sometimes all it takes is like that one major win, right, to kind of get the monkey off your back and like kind of ease tension. Like, okay, we're able to get it done, right? You know, you beat Team Liquid. Now you can come in, play a little bit looser, right? And maybe you start to see these performances start to come together more often.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, we're going to take a quick breather here and have our desk break down the 3 incredible maps that we've seen so far as Nightmare go into this break with a 2-1 lead in this first of 4 series.
They do indeed. Thank you so much, Mitch and Matt, Caleb and Zoe back here to break it all down. The series started off with Kafa and Malga, which will make it into my personal top 10 anime betrayals. Just no honest Overwatch gameplay these days. Incredible. And I am apparently muted in Discord, but now he can hear me. I said only nice things about you, Caleb. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so we started the series off Malga, and Kafa was on Malga, even though they promised not to do that. But SSG, they repaid in kind, sporting their very own Malga on Route 66. And Route 66 is what I really want to hone into here first, because that was a pivotal turning point for Nightmare. We saw Ramattra that worked against the Malga comp from SSG, and the Hazard didn't. Can you break that down for us? So what made that work?
Yeah, all right, so chat, I want everyone to put their thinking caps on. It's actually like a really simple, in my mind, explanation of why one thing worked and one didn't. Hazard has really good pressure onto their hit scan, but with the way that Nightmare's been playing with the Ashe, they really don't want to be playing that fast anyways. They want to slow the game down. They want to give Lethal the space to shoot the enemy team and not really go in that aggressively. So the Hazard doesn't really work. The ult doesn't get a lot of value, but when you play that Ramattra, as you see here on the screen, Kafa plays the Ramattra, there's a lot of time to play slow, to anchor, and whenever he gets caged by the Malga, he has his initial shift, his Nemesis form, and then when he ults, he gets another one. So he has a lot of HP, it blocks a lot of damage. It makes it so cage is not always a free fight win. But what the issue was with Hazard, every time they caged, it was just a free win because they didn't have anything they had the wall, they had the Hazard block. It's just not the same as Ramattra. So they slowed the game down a little bit for their tank and their hit scan, and they gave Zera all of the resources, and Zera has just been controlling the map. And frankly, right now, he is playing better than Sugar Free. He is playing better than Sugar Free, and it carried over to the next map. And I think Nightmare right now has a ton of confidence, and it doesn't really matter what comp they're playing. I think just that simple Hazard to Ramattra swap, and they saw the results they got, they became confident, and the momentum's in their favor.
So what can SSG do now to stop that momentum?
I think you kind of have to look at going back and looking back at the Malga, and it feels counterintuitive because they did just lose the Ramattra, but I feel like they had just lost faith, and I think the change of pace kind of shook them a little bit mid-map, but that is a good composition. It is something they are good at. I think you take them to a map where that's favored, and you stick to your guns and you just make some small adjustments. You play a little faster. You don't suck yourself into the tank battle. You have the charge on a 5-6 second cooldown. You can play fast. You get Sugar Free engaged again. You don't worry so much about the Genjis jostling for space. You just play fast. You get in their face. You up the tempo up.
All right, here we see it. SSG is going to take us to Colosseo, and they're banning out that Brig, whereas Nightmare is going for that Malga ban. What does that tell you?
This could go either way. Colosseo is one of those maps where there are the high grounds to take advantage of, but teams have also gone to the rush brawl style here, but it doesn't matter because Nightmare banned out the Malga. So they're saying, hey, listen, we're feeling great about the setup that we're in. So this could potentially just be another dive mare. It could be as simple as hit scan, Winston, and a tracer. And I'm here for it. I'm enjoying it. I get to listen to Mitch go absolutely crazy and call dive. I'm living for it.
Yeah, man, those high-octane dive maps is what we're all here for. And we saw a glimpse of that on map number 1 already, Colosseo. Maybe we run it back. Nightmare against SSG. They're up 2-1. Let's see if SSG can bring it back and foil the action. We're going to head on over to Matt and Mitch.
This is it. One Garden Variety USDA Prime Malga ban locked and loaded here for Nightmare. They realize Spacestation are trying to tilt things back in their favor a little bit with a bit of an odd pick of Colosseo. Nightmare say, no, buddy. You are joining us in the Winston Dive affair. We are going to make you play this until morale improves.
We've seen SSG actually play Colosseo a few times here throughout the stage. In stage 1, one of the teams that frequently would go here. And yeah, with the malga gone and the brig gone, this is going to be full-on dive yet again. It'll be lethal on the Ashe here. That'll be the only difference that we've seen between these two teams, as the Ashe a little bit more long-range pressure. Kuffa gets hit with a bio, though. Gets absolutely deleted.
Yeah, had that anti-heal shoved straight down his gullet there. Not a lot that could be done by his teammates to intervene. Brig is the ban here, but we have obviously Lucio Ana valued a little bit higher than maybe a Kiriko to stop some of these bios, and it kind of makes sense because if you're a Winston player, you can try and stop them yourself with a bubble. Kuffa comes back off spawn and has Kellen just breaking through his window like it's Spider-Man visiting a friend in Manhattan. Well, now we still see Spacestation trying to group up. At least they'll have this high ground to work with, but they've lost some ground already.
Yeah, I mean, well, on this map, right, there's so much high ground that you want to, like, kind of fight over. It'll be curious how both teams kind of approach it. I think with the Ashe, right, you're able to kind of fight that high ground maybe a little bit even easier, like at longer ranges. But where SSG was, right, you don't want to kind of, like, play up in that area, right? You're going to play in that, like, long bridge. You want to force a Nightmare down and to play back on here rather than fight back for that high ground. But you lose Seeker here right away. Kuffa's going to try and make his way back to the rest of the team. 40 HP, and he's going to be able to get out.
Get in the bubble, man. Oh, God, he was just waiting for that cooldown. I think it was like 40 HP with 1 second going to bubble cooldown. And then he was back to business. Okay, now Spacestation can have a crack at this. Likely it's a... Kuffa is the nano delivery system here.
Yeah.
The Zera Pulse Bomb.
And just to remind you guys at home, they are flipped up top. So keep that in mind, where SSG is on the left-hand side. They are in the blue. That would be Nightmare in the orange. That is not red.
Yeah.
Red?
No, like blue and red is like the more standard. We have orange.
Oh, okay. I was like, that is misleading because that is orange.
See, you say orange? I said, it's kind of subjective, really. Kuffa, though, as we kind of highlighted back coming into this fight, would be nanoed and sent up to the high ground, and he's done a great job. From the low ground, you notice that UV is able to hit a Bionade on Seeker, of all players. Probably one of the most important people to hit with that ability. And now, Nightmare have the lead. Slow start when they lost a lot of ground, but now that engine is running.
And this next fight is quite dangerous here for SSG, right? It's going to be the Bob sent in. Look at this, Kuffa on a little bit of like a flank, right? Going all the way around, putting a lot of pressure here on the CJ. And I wonder, we don't actually see on board with CJ for even a second, but if you use that sleep dart onto the Bob, right, you don't have it for that Winston coming down the alley.
Okay, Sugar Free in trouble. Has to recall here. Primal, okay, being popped by Kuffa. This is a checkpoint, surely.
Yeah, you want a checkpoint, yeah.
Oh, buddy, that is perfect. And Kuffa says, job well done. I'm gonna get out of here now.
I mean, you double up the score, you get checkpoint, you now take a fight back towards mid-map, right, where you feel like you have a little bit of an advantage for that long-range, poke. So you see they're using, like I talked about, right? CJ has to use that sleep dart onto the Bob. That frees up Kuffa to just jump on in. Nice bio there, connects from UV. Connects with Seeker and CJ, and they get the kill onto CJ early. Some nice heals coming down from UV, man, as Nightmares really clicked these last two maps.
It couldn't look much better than that. That was stunning work off that bio. And yeah, just that idea, right, of creating another thing that has to be slept. It's so huge. Kuffa getting to go in there without any threat of dart is massive. So bot now going to be moved back into an aggressive position, but Kuffa got body blocked inside that room by the looks of things. I don't know, or maybe it's just the bubble that Kellen throws down. Very wisely realizes it cuts off the Ana healing, and maybe Kuffa couldn't adjust.
Yeah, I think he got body blocked up there. Either the body blocked or, like you mentioned, the bubble, but like we were talking about before, you can't let the Bob just free fire, right? The Bob is just going to put down so much damage, like if you don't respect it. You don't have enough damage to like burst it down, right? So you have to use a sleep, and that allows Kuffa to go in, and it's going to be an overclock from Seeker. I think just trying to find anything, right? You need to get the push past this corner because this high ground is so good for Nightmare to fight from.
Oh, buddy, that is too classy, man. There is some wind shear on that throw. CJ gets caught by that pulse bomb midway through, and Zera can play through the bubble. But though still back a little bit past mid, but here it is. Lethal is eventually able to deal with Seeker, who's just so sick on this Ashe, adding so much here to the arsenal for Nightmare. Kellen goes for a Primal Rage. Should be good for 2. at least in total. Yeah, with Sugar Free coming in to clean up Admiral there. So nice little turnaround. Still so much work to be done here for Space Station to get back to that checkpoint. We've now hit the halfway mark on this map. We need to see SSG go into a higher gear.
Can you fight this though if you're SSG? I think you have to wait, right? Because you end up losing Bliss, so you don't have your speed to kind of wrap around this corner. But you also kind of want a fight where you win it decisively down here on the ground before going towards this high ground. Because you see where Lethal can play from now on the Ash. I mean, this is just a perfect shooting gallery that he's able to shoot from.
Here's the Bob to contest, in theory. Thrown down towards that low ground, and Sugar Free knows he can get into the back line at some point. UV goes down, but Bob did find CJ in the end. Big value there for Nightmare. Bob in a pretty scary spot, actually.
The bot's going the complete other way. Yeah. So you're not even going to get any progress out of this. You have Zera here as well for Nightmare. So about halfway through the game, Nightmare double up in terms of meterage. And now you're going to be able to cycle for both teams, right? Well, at least for Nightmare, you're going to be able to cycle your Nano into your Primal, and then you also have Sound Barrier to use here. No Primal just yet for Kellen. It's going to be the Nanos that come out first.
Yeah, both Arnas get the Nanos as well. That's a sleep dart that just doesn't hit for Ultraviolet. And I want to put something on the radar here. Sugar Free is starting to heat up Matt in a big way. Goes pretty invisible last couple of maps, but this Tracer play has been excellent, and he's following Kellen's dives in beautifully, turning the one Winston into a 3K opportunity.
I mean, you need Sugar Free to step up, right? Because Zero has been fantastic here through the first 4 maps in the set. So if somebody's going to match him, it has to be Sugar Free. And as we say that, Zera takes out Seeker. I feel like also it might be a little bit, it might mean a little bit more to the Nightmare guys, right? Because like they probably feel like they should have been, you know, some of them like, you know, moving up to a team like a Liquid, like an SSG, right? And throughout the year, they kind of got like looked over. And this, you kind of take that personal, especially when going up against some of those teams and players that you like deep down feel that you're better than, maybe just don't have the bigger name then, as you really want to win this series. I mean, not only getting first seed in NA would be you know, really impressive, but then also would feel like a pretty big win in terms of the confidence for this team moving forward.
The last couple of minutes, though, Matt, Space Station have just been the slightly better team here. They've not really converted yet into a checkpoint, but damn, the one clip on Ultraviolet. Not a good sign here for Nightmare. Starting to lose their grip on things a little bit. Like I warned you, Sugar Free really starting to get into the game, and now Space Station can cover new ground with the bot.
And you're going to have Lethal swap over to the Sojourn, so you can tell that the dive was starting to get a little bit too much for the Ash to deal with. Just the coach gun that the Ash has to get away. Some shots there from Sugar Free on a Kuffa as he dives on in. That forces the Primal out right away, and look at this Kuffa just chasing Bliss. Not going to be able to get that kill.
Now, I don't get it. It just doesn't really work. And Kuffa goes to chase a Lucio, but doesn't really contest the bot at all. Seeker's able to get up there on that high ground and start to unravel Nightmare from their own side of the map. Now, we have a checkpoint for SSG and a lead potentially to build off of it.
It seems like they almost seem a little bit, you know, frazzled here, Nightmare, a little bit panicked as the butt scratch will kick in. We have a exact tie game here. Is this going to be Admiral's beat?
I mean, okay, bot's being led away right now, so Space Station can't extend their lead through this fight, but Ultraviolet goes down yet again in the back line. Sugar Free looking scary. Beat Zera out at the start of that engagement, now has an easy shot here on the Lucio. Admiral just capitulates, not a damn thing you could do. And now, SSG will take the lead. 1 minute 20 left to play.
And now we're going back to Ash here, as it seems like Nightmare. You hold on to that Admiral sound barrier for like 2-3 fights, and then even the fight you use, it just connects with 3. You get really no value out of it. So it seems like the wheels have fallen off here for Nightmare, so to speak. But I think it does align with, I mean, look at this. I mean, Sugar Free and Kellen doing such a better job connecting with each other, just going and just running through the backline of Nightmare.
I mean, this has now gotten out of hand severely. Nightmare had a lead, but didn't really seem like they wanted to press it or had it prized slowly out of their grip. SSG now get to that triple-digit mark and are threatening an even completion here with 40 seconds left in the game. But Space Station know here, on this push, they've done enough. They can fall back here, let Nightmare take enough rope to hang themselves with. Zera does see Bliss here, who always seems to be slipping away, and there is just a bait. Sugar Free again takes Zera down, who's not been able to have that same impact in the game since the sleeping giant Lenny awoke.
The second half of this round on Colosseo has just been absolutely dominated by SSG. This has been a blowout the second half as Cuffo will fall. Looks like a completely different team here. We're like, oh, then maybe the Winston comp is something that Nightmare can look a little bit better than SSG on, but that does not look like it here on Colosseo. That is a full map completion there for the win. It felt like Nightmare didn't win a fight from the 4-minute mark on.
It was like watching Devin Larat pretend to lose an arm wrestle before breaking his opponent's arm off. SSG kind of go back and forth a bunch and then blow the game out entirely there. I think, did we see Lethal on Sojourn at some point? That felt like a concession.
For like a spawn or two.
Yeah, Sugar Free looked really, really good. I think Zera was having such an incredible game. He just looks to be the dominant player. Like 3 minutes in, we're thinking this guy is really just dominating and absolutely leaving Sugar Free in his dust. And I don't want to put it all down to one player. Bliss played excellent. Really hard to catch. Was really dialed in when it came to those dives. And Kellen decided he was sick of dropping these maps to these young upstarts. Decided to even the series.
I mean, you look at this. I mean, right? 5 minutes to go. 66 meters to 30. I don't think actually another meter was gotten there for Nightmare. Just a complete blowout from the 4-minute mark on, pretty much. As I think now, if you're Nightmare, you have to consider what you do in terms of like banning some of this stuff out potentially, right? Getting it back more into that Ramattra wheelhouse.
Perhaps, right? I really feel like the bread and butter, or at least of what pays.
I mean, look at this, 2 minutes on the clock. 2 minutes on the clock. They go from 60 meters, basically run it all the way down. They didn't lose a fight the rest of the map.
In the scheme of sort of push maps, it's actually quite an astonishing comeback. Not like a triple-digit comeback, but still quite significant. Yeah, I'll be honest with you guys. Something happened there for Nightmare. They went off the boil in a big way, and SSG came thundering in to tie up our series. This might just be for seeding in a bit of extra pocket money, but for these teams, it means everything.
And I think what we saw Lethal switch off of the Ashe, which he's been so good on throughout the series. I think just the amount of pressure from Kellen and Sugar Free was too much. Go over to the Sojourn for just a little bit and then switch on back. But it just seemed like they had no answer for Kellen and Sugar Free the second half of that map. I do wonder whether it be map selection or bans, Nightmare decides to do something to really shake things up.
Or do they just go back, pick a map where they're comfortable, play the dive mirror again? They are, obviously, that was, this is kind of punishing, really. That was their malga ban map. And also, in the best of 7, by the way, when you can't reuse bans, you really start to run low on them. But by the end of the series, after like, God forbid, like 4 or 5 maps, you actually can't really influence the game that heavily by targeting bans anymore.
Yeah, at that time, it almost becomes like keeping track of what the other team's done and like using yours, if you get the first one, more as like a protection, right? To be able to kind of like, you know, block the other team. Like EWC, we saw a bunch of like Mercy, Lifeweaver, different types of bans, like characters you would just never play, just to block that support role. So curious to see where these teams decide to go in terms of that ban process, right? Still a lot of series left, it feels like.
I mean, this series has just turned into a best of 3, folks. We are even after the break. And honestly, I feel so different than coming out of Suravasa, where it was just like a completely one-sided game. And that's what happens at this level. Like, teams have second wins, they have reserves that they can dig into. And sometimes it's the younger, less tested team that, as we get deeper and deeper into the series, can start to lose their footing. They get ahead of themselves and their opponents start to find a way to pivot back into the game, and they start to lose control of it themselves. Some worrying signs, I think. The dive on UV was very, very effective. He's not able to do much. I mean, I watched CJ get farmed.
Yeah.
Like absolutely ruined in the first half of their map, and all of a sudden, pressure was off him. He was doing so much work, and it was UV that was getting chewed up.
And we worry a little bit about like, oh, like what would a Nightmare, SSG match look like? We haven't seen it in a while, right? It was week 1 of the season. It was the second match, and you're like, oh, maybe that SSG is just on a different level than Nightmare. I think one thing Nightmare has proved throughout the playoffs, throughout the season, is like, they are up there in that top echelon of NA, obviously taking out Team Liquid, but going toe to toe here with SSG. So they go Li Zhang here for the next map. What do you decide to get rid of, though? Do you get rid of like a Lucio? Do you get rid of like a Kiri? Do you go like in terms of do you try and get like a tank protect, right? Like maybe deny them from banning.
Think about what is even, you can't ban Ramattra, right?
No, you would almost like you would ban, let's say, Reinhardt to protect SSG from banning like a Ramattra or banning something along those lines, right? Because it feels like if they banned, because you've already banned malga, right? If you end up like banning something else and then they ban the Ramattra and you want to play, then you're forced to play like what, Hazard into the malga, right? So they banned Sojourn, which is quite interesting. So this is actually going to force Seeker to play something else, which we actually haven't seen that much of. And it is the ceremonial Lifeweaver ban there for SSG that comes out. So don't think you would have seen Lifeweaver. Yeah, it seems like they just don't really. That's one though that like, okay, we're fine with everything else actually being in, but we don't want to like waste a ban potentially, right? You don't want to like burn a Kiri ban or something along those lines, right? When you would rather just chuck something out there like the Lifeweaver. We're fine playing the game without the Sojourn and see what happens.
Can Seeker play Cassidy into like a Malga Ashe comp?
Ooh, that would be quite. So, I mean, it would be like why. So, like, why would Nightmare end up playing the Malga? I guess. Like for me, Nightmare feels like this is going to be Winston. It's going to be like Hazard.
Okay.
Like.
Yeah, maybe they just want a Winston Ashe mirror. Maybe they feel like this. Yeah.
I'm more curious what Seeker decides to play, right? It's been like Sojourn insta-lock with a little bit of Widow on like Dorado and whatnot, basically throughout the stage. Obviously, we know he can play something like an Ashe. Reaper also, you know, pretty viable on some of these points.
Okay, Control Center as well. I mean, you can play like that brawly Reaper with the Orisa setup. Adventure is there as well, just to give you a little bit extra on that dive. Yeah, no consideration really here from SSG to play Malga. I think we have seen this. I think we saw this earlier today by Infected on Nepal, and didn't work. It was I think the last map of the series. I want to say it didn't work at all.
So they go with a venture Cassidy. So you did say like maybe we see a Cassidy. You will see it here, where I think that Cassie is almost like you would like it to look even a little bit better for like playing against the Winston, but right there, it is a burrow from Sugarfree, gets right into the back line, and Seeker with a headshot on the lethal finishes him off. The effective range of the Cassidy way better here than a Ashe, and that's going to have lethal making the swap.
Bro, Soj ban actually ends up giving us a pretty fun comp mix up here. So it will be a Cassidy mirror between lethal and Seeker. Talk about a grudge, but it feels like that's like your hit scan pride is on the line when you're in one of these head-to-heads. However, Nightmare are going to have an actual shield to play with. The only team, unless Kellen opts to sort of spec into taking the shield perk, I suggest more likely that he takes the charged javelin shot when it comes out, just because it can obviously catch multiple targets, and it's very potent.
Even with those 2 kills on Mitch, it's Nightmare who gets control of the point first. So it's going to be very difficult, I think, to like dislodge this Ramattra. You're going to have to use that speed, obviously get right past the shield, but even then, the Nemesis form, you're going to have to hold on to some of these cooldowns, though, if you're killing, right? Once that Orisa's armor falls off, she just kind of crumbles.
No, that's right. I mean, again, once that gets knocked, she's half health as it is, but yeah, she takes some very quick damage. Turn around here, deflect available for the Genji. Yes, Zero does pop that. Seeker does not have the perk that refunds 30% ult charge with an expired Deadeye, so that is entirely lost, but it made a lot of space here. It made it really awkward for Kuffer, who couldn't duel at all and really just got poked down inside that side room. Once again, the Venture here, pretty sticky. And honestly, Venture's awful for Cassie to deal with, because when you're burrowed, you can just kind of walk at the guy and close the gap. That's exactly what Cassie does not want to deal with.
Venture's perks are also pretty nutty, right? When perks came out, Venture looked like they were going to be one of the biggest winners in terms of the perk options for the heroes. So like the ability to kind of like have the cooldown refresh during Tectonic Shock. I mean, that is crazy with Venture, how strong her cooldowns, their cooldowns are.
Yeah. Orbit Rake here getting popped, and Sugarfree can just play from inside this. Comes out from Nightmare as well, and Zero might look to save the game again. Nightmare have won consecutively 2 fights where they start at a player disadvantage, where they are short-handed. This is absurd, but Kellen's a problem. Zera alone can't deal with the Orisa. Even with the healing of Ultraviolet there from that ledge, can't handle them. So really, there's no point but just to group up here around your Ramattra again, who has returned, and Zera's got to be very respectful here of the damage that can be applied.
He's got to get in line of sight of UV, right? Because UV's kind of working around the outside. This is going to be the Deadeye from Lethal, trying to get him positioned here up on the stairs. He's going to be able to land it. It's going to be a sound barrier there from Bliss. It's going to keep everybody topped up. Admiral with the later one, though.
Tech Shock comes out. Deadeye here from Seeker. All right, straight through the Orisa we go. Zero, though, does fall. Kellen with the Terror Surge is able to complete that kill contract.
Annihilation.
Pop Sugar still on the point here. Dive on in's taking a bunch of damage, though, and just gets his one Kufra Nemesis form. It's too great to overcome. And there's an Annihilation here in reserve. Should it be needed? Lethal gets picked off here as both tanks studiously ignoring each other. Kufra, though, is low. Needs that healing desperately, but there just isn't any. Ultraviolet's on an awkward angle now as the Javelin comes in. Kufra's going to be considering Annihilation here in a moment, I'd suggest, as we're close to an Orbital Ray. Kufra holds on, and here it is. Annihilation thrown into the mix. Orbital Ray combining it. Nightmare half the point, and now the lead. Seeker, exsanguinated. Sugar Free, toppled. Kufra does go down, but it's a worthwhile trade for Nightmare, who can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
The fact that they're able to keep Kuffa alive that long is insane to me. I mean, he had rolled through all of his cooldowns at that point. Ultraviolet finally gets Orbital Ray, decides to pop it. They use it with the Annihilation. They're able to get a fight win and now put themselves in a scenario. One more fight to win here. So Lethal on a little bit of a flank.
Okay. Couple, no shots really connecting. They're outside of his effective range, but now the pressure's on. CJ has to pop the Orbital Ray, but Zera has fallen already. Kuffa not far behind him. Nightmare had to let this one go. They still got a chance to take the map, but it's a little awkward. They have a Deadeye, which is fine, but it doesn't give Mark a whole lot else to work with. Whereas SSG definitely, with a tech shock here, could be devastating.
Can you build up a blade here, though? I think there's definitely a possibility you can build up a blade. I mean, you're most certainly going to get a blade here, right? Another 20% on the point. You're already at 86. There's no sound barrier yet on the other side. I think if you win this... Yeah, if you win this, it's around this blade that comes through.
For free?
Still on the bliss.
In this economy, that is crazy. Blitz goes down. No chance to be able to sound barrier you in this fight. And Zero pulls the blade. That probably shouldn't have broken this way. I'm going to be honest with you. Nightmare, though, able to flip the point now. Sugar Free is here on the venture. They will emerge. And they will run. Forced to flee now. Is that overtime? Will stay in play until the point is flipped. So there is a chance at least for SSG to get some numbers here. Here comes Lenny. Has to use his mobility to get onto the pointer, which means there is no escape unless you burrow away. Kellen is here on the Diva. Less than ideal choice for the moment, but they need that mobility now as a Vortex is thrown into the back line. And there's Admiral, always reliable. Rock solid, has a beat just when they needed. Kellen going to be hacked here as Lethal returns on the Sombra now. Virus thrown in the direction of CJ. And the Juno is caught on the outside looking in. Nightmare take an exciting, explosive first round.
And remember when you were like, oh, they need to kind of build up towards this Bliss sound barrier, and Zera takes him out in the fight really previously before he ends up using the Dragon Blade. He actually never even gets the beat. Just kind of because he dies off spawn yet again in that final fight. So Nightmare doing a fantastic job putting pressure on to the support of SSG. That time denying Bliss the ability to build towards that sound barrier towards the end. Admiral gets his off. Makes it pretty worthwhile there for Nightmare. It's an opportunity with another control round, Mitch, to go to a match point in the grand finals. Would be a huge shock, I think, to a lot of people to see Nightmare end up coming out on top. Seeker this time will play Ashe, so this SSG is actually going to play a comp that we've seen Nightmare actually play a ton of here throughout this series.
Very reasonable on this map as well to take the Winston Ashe duo, but Lethal is able to overcome the range disadvantage that Cassidy inherently has, and they take Seeker down. I mean, this guy.
Yeah, I mean, can you just move up like with the Ramattra shield, right? You see the Ramattra shield kind of thrown in there in the choke. No way that you can kind of shoot through it there if you're the Ashe and just kind of like move around with the Ram. That's kind of maybe what you're looking for there, but Lethal with just a headshot off the rip. I mean, no way you can kind of counteract that.
I also think that, like, switching to Cassie for Seeker probably wants this sort of hindrance grenade to answer Zera, to just give you a little bit of a extra edge against the Genji. Okay,
look at how much he's split off, though. Like, Kuffa there is split off the supports, right? It's so difficult to get healing on a Kellen.
Okay, you see here, the major perk often taken by Cassidy is that critical hits will reduce the roll cooldown. Really powerful in general. Even just like one critical hit can make a huge difference there. So keep your eye on that one. Lethal says, no.
I'm not feeling it today, bro.
I don't want to get dove. I mean, Cassidy against Winston always feels absolutely awful. Really difficult. You use that roll early, even with the major perk I just talked about. You just don't feel like you have it available enough. So, Deadeye up here for Seeker. Pulse Bomb for Sugar Free, who was on the venture in the previous round. Now back on that deadly Tracer that basically won that Colosseo map.
Oh. It's going to be
sleeping.
Yeah, it's going to be sound barrier use here really early, though, from Bliss and SSG because the Annihilation comes on through. So a later sound barrier comes in here for Nightmare. And oh, that is filthy stuff. That is a Deadeye there.
You have lots of damage reduction as Cassidy during Deadeye.
Yeah.
An extremely high amount of damage reduction, no less. The audacity for Lethal to peer in there and take that Cassidy kill is ridiculous. But for me, it's Kuffa ducking into the dojo and just taking CJ down. They don't respect that Ramattra Annihilation. They think that the Deadeye got them enough space and zoned. But Kuffa just makes his way in the backside.
So we'll see now how they kind of deal with this. Yeah, you see Kellen jumps in and Kuffa just puts that shield and the vortex over on the bridge, right? So how does Kellen stay alive? He has to use Primal to do so because his entire team, like the supports, have not made it over the bridge just yet.
He's got to get Lethal knocked off the map. He'll have it here. So, okay, Coach Gun of the
Coach
century.
Gun, yeah.
You better believe it. Oh, Lethal the GOAT should still fall here, but this is taking way too long for Kellen. Needs to get back to the locus of action. Admiral staying alive a little longer would have been helpful, but Sugar Free is able to account for the backline on his own. Kuffa returns, but it's a flip point, so he just wants to make a swift exit.
Yeah, they're going to get a little bit of a stagger here on to Kuffa as you needed Kellen to pop that Primal, be able to stay alive long enough, right? Because that vortex of Kuffa and the shield over on the bridge, right? So you got to be able to withstand that. And okay, Lethal just turns a corner, 2-tap Seeker, so that's going to give them a player advantage. I mean, dude, Lethal's been on point today.
The absolute gappening of it is absurd. Zero here.
Sleep on the Bob.
Big pulse, Bliss low, easy pick off, or at least you'd think, but Bliss is a slippery sucker and he's able to get out of dodge. Spotted again by Zero, but again, that was a golden opportunity that goes begging. I flip though back here for Nightmare. What's the answer for Space Station? Nano Winston is the order of the day, but Kellen's getting burst down awfully quickly. That Ramattra poke perk definitely doing some work. Kuffa was hoping to be the bridge guardian here, the troll to keep SSG at bay, and Sugar Free passes on that pulse bomb. Zero though does him one better. Again, it's Seeker with a bit of press Q to respawn action at a pretty crucial time for SSG. When they needed him most, he was in small bite-sized chunks. And Lethal strikes again, this time getting rid of Sugar Free. The Ash Cap is Astro Bloody Nomical, and Nightmare will take us to match point.
Dude, also huge shout out there to Admiral. I don't know if you caught that, but when Kuffa is defending the bridge, Sugar Free actually lands the pulse bomb on his back while he's like in Nemesis form, and Admiral comes in with a sound barrier able to save him, and that keeps him alive and keeps them fighting over in that area of the map as Nightmare. I was worried a little bit, to be honest, about, this team was so focused on getting to China, so overwhelming, probably that win over Team Liquid, that they were going to kind of like be a little bit flat coming into this series and, not really. I mean, you obviously know what's at stake with the #1 seed, right? But, maybe kind of feel like you already accomplished what you did by making it to China, and they have not done that. They clearly want to send a message, win all of this in North America, and just one map away from doing it.
It is insane that we find ourselves here. The Lijiang Tower pick pays off. The Ramattra comp here looks pretty darn good. For me, I mean, it's the Orisa here from Kellen where they don't really want to go for the Malga. It just doesn't quite satisfy. And then a switch to the Trident 2 Winston setup. Seeker forced onto the Cassidy. Lethal says, no, actually, I think I'm going to take this Ash battle here. Having Coach Gun with that extra mobility. Oh, that beat is stunning. Look at good catch there, Matt. And look at this. The Pulse Bomb follow-up to claim Seeker was everything. The switch to Farah is way too late in the day as Zera just goes to work. Man, it is so hard for me to pick a standout player in this Nightmare squad. They are all playing so far above their league that we've expected.
I mean, they're all playing arguably like the game series, like I even think they're playing better than they played against Team Liquid, right? I mean, here against SSG, knowing how difficult of an opponent SSG is, you see how evenly matched these two teams were on Lijiang Tower, though. And now, obviously, we've kind of gone through everything, right? SSG with an opportunity here to select map. We'll see what's also left in terms of bans. So it will be Esperanza here in the series. So you picked Colosseo a little bit earlier. They obviously won the push there. 3 support bans in a row here for SSG as well, right? The Kiri, the Brig, the Lifeweaver. I do recall them like a little bit earlier. At least one of the teams did ban an Ana. So we'll see where we go in terms of bans.
I think that Nightmare can still ban Kiri here.
Yeah, so So I mean, for SSG, right? Like they could ban Ramattra. I believe I don't believe they were the team that banned Ana, and I don't believe they were the team that banned Winston. Yeah, so they're protecting the supports here, right? That's kind of what they're going for. And then on the other side of things, okay, so Nightmare bans the Torp. Torp obviously pretty good against Hazard, but I don't think like either of these I don't think Seeker was moving off of Sojourn to play.
Not in a hurry,
right?
Yeah.
I don't even think I even think if they told him to, he wouldn't do it. So I mean, probably just be like, yeah, okay, sure, and just continue to play Sojourn.
Hunter is going to tell Seeker to play Torb.
No, I was saying if you see like Hazard on the other side, right? We know how good that pick is, but looks like now with the game on the line, do we see this more Ramattra play here from Nightmare? It's been so good, man. Maybe it's a foreign response. Is that what we're gonna see here?
I don't like it at all. I guess the Ash, bro. Are they just gonna try and see what sticks? They are coming out of the gates with the Farah. Now again, you can play out of LOS a lot of the time. But man, if you're not hitting directs, it takes a long time for to get critical mass. But I like the 1-2 punch here because Sugarfree can follow up and finish off the kills that Seeker in theory sets up. And here's what happens: you pick, but you show up in front of Lethal. Yeah, he's getting in that console, bro, and he's banning from the lobby.
Especially with how well he's shooting. I mean, you see though, we don't actually catch the end of it, but Kellen dives directly onto Lethal. As soon as his coach gun is gone, who's there to meet him on the other side? It is Sugarfree. So they clearly have determined, like, hey, we need to get Lethal off of the server. Yeah, just put him on something else. So gonna go over and play Sombra, another hero he's fantastic at.
Is this going to be enough though? A lot of the time, Seeker can play outside of Sombra's effective hack range. Not all the time, mind you, but enough. But again, here now, there's not really anything that like directly threatens Seeker outside of Ultraviolet, who I would still respect, mind you, but is busy healing. Can't be shooting Farah all the time. I don't love the Sombra switch, and Nightmare tend to agree that switch him back.
Yeah, gonna go right back to plate. I wonder if they're considering maybe changing tank instead of actually kind of changing over. Yeah. So they're gonna play the Winston here. So kind of answer fire with fire, right? If they're gonna dive our back line, we're gonna go dive theirs and feel like maybe you have a little bit of an advantage where the Farah, right? Just kind of chunking some damage down. You're able to block some of it with the bubble. So that's going to be Lethal taking out Sugarfree. So finding a headshot, just the one-shot tap there onto the Tracer.
Yep, Ash still good. Ash not the problem, as was evidence, I think, from the last map. Almost a checkpoint there, though, for Space Station. Pretty scary stuff. Nice little sleep there on Kufra. Whoa, buddy. Yeah, Seeker does get slept in response, but that is not a kill that can be capitalized on, or rather not a kill that can be taken. So Nightmare without a tank are going to have to let this one get past them. Zera has a plan. Into the back line, CJ. Can he hold off here? Here comes the cavalry. It's not enough to save the Ana. Dirty work there from Zera, but has to give up his life for it. And we'll always be wondering, was it worth it?
You're also with this Farah, right? Just putting a lot of pressure onto Lethal, like even if he's not, like you're not getting the kills, right? Just being a threat to him and the Ana, right? Ultraviolet having a fantastic series. This is going to be a sleep here on Kellen. Kellen's going to pop the Primal though, trying to stay alive as Lethal's found his second of this fight. There's no way you can keep him up.
Yeah, I think, Ultraviolet tried to land that Mega. No chance for that. Again, has Nano, but doesn't have the perk that obviously gives him Nano too, so it's just not worth it there. Still, Nightmare still feel like they're in a position to aggress, and I wouldn't disagree with them. Sugarfree's off the map yet again. Barrage in play, which means Seeker either has or is very close to the perk that will probably allow him to be mobile during Barrage, which is pretty important against Hitscan. And here comes Admiral.
And the ability to nano him too. The ability to nano that moving rocket barraging Farah. It's pretty filthy. So see, it looks like they kind of have an idea though, Nightmare, that their SSG is playing around something. It's going to be Lethal now trying to take high ground control.
Figure under pressure. Trace can be a problem. As the nano barrage, and we're just going to fight in the shade apparently. Oh buddy, the Persians couldn't figure it out, and nor could SSG. It's going to be a trade of Arnas though here. Seeker goes over the top. He's very low, dealt with by the coach gun at close range. Get off my lawn, says Lethal. As Kellen at least comes in to make the swap. Sugarfree trying to back away.
Insane,
just absolutely ruined. Kuffa's going to be there with Sugarfree. He's sitting on a Primal and chooses to spend it here. And I get it. If there's a stagger, this could mean a checkpoint. What a juggle. This is really technically very difficult. And Bliss is going to be able to stay away from the Winston, boop him back, and Kuffer's made space, but not enough to get that checkpoint now, and he might be regretting that decision, Matt.
No, they have Nano and Sound Barrier to use here. I mean, they're able to hold on to both. They were able to hold on to both support ults through that, which is actually insane there for Nightmare. I mean, that is Sound Barrier, Nano onto a rocket barraging Pharah, and there was a pulse bomb used there for SSG, and they're not able to win the fight. I mean, that is crazy stuff. Nightmare ends up taking the lead. They're still holding on to these support ults. Dude, that is a crazy fight they're able to come out on top in.
Massive checkpoint to take here. Nano here for Ultraviolet. Okay, you're right, they saved both support ultimates through that fight. I thought Cover was dead to rights after that primal, but somehow he's able to get back in LOS of his supports. And nothing even has to be used on Cover. Oh, they're losing track of this game. Spacestation are losing their grip. It's at risk now, slipping through their fingers for all the bluff and bluster of this team coming into stage 1. It could be curtains for them right here on Esperanza. Lethal Nano there, not that he really needs it. He's taking it over once more. And Spacestation Gaming, full-scale retreat. They're going to have to fight into a sound barrier in the next engagement. And Zera will be back quickly enough.
I wouldn't be surprised if SSG's like full tilted after losing that fight. I mean, it's a sleep dart onto the Nano barraging Pharah. You don't get any of the support ults outs on the other side. And they've, what? They were at like 20 meters at the start of that, and now they're up to almost 100. Kellen jumps in. He ends up just crumbling. Admiral still with this sound barrier, and use it to just kind of get this bot around the corner. Dude, a full map completion would be a crazy way to end it. Dude, the Bob, though. Even follow this Bob up, yeah.
Here's Bob out in the open, a pretty good position. Lethal, though, does have the dodge away from the Winston, and CJ is brought down by the Bob. God, Kellen, with bloodlust in his eyes, he's just focused, and Lethal just deals another one. Sugar Free runs straight into the dynamite, and Nightmare have chained together some of the most ridiculous sequencing I've seen on a map like this, but it always seems to be here on Esperanza, where champions are born in their regions or internationally. 136 meters now. That is a mortal blow that has been struck by Nightmare, and Space Station now reeling. It's going to be Kellen that gets the Nano, though. It's about clearing Nightmare away, about slowly trying to put this comeback together. But Zera gets in on CJ again. This is going to slow things up. Kellen might have to double back here and let Admiral go.
Lethal is absolutely farming right now. I mean, being able to just walk in on the Ash, just come up with 3. I mean, they are doing everything they can to try and get on top of the Ash of Nightmare is SSG, and it has not worked out thus far. They go from basically nothing on the scoreboard there, Nightmare, to 136 meters. And now it's going to be SSG who needs a massive comeback. I mean, you think about how the last push went, right? Nightmare in control really early on, then SSG dominated towards the end. I mean, they're going to need a historical run to come back here.
Seeker's getting battered. Sound Barrier came in, though, and God, to kill Lethal under that kind of pressure from a Winston is astonishing. Zera peeked out, and Seeker, laser focus, locked in. 3 minutes to play and a big hill to climb. The Space Station have got the quality for it. Kellen here using the rest of the primal to clear off Admiral, and we are off to the races. This will be a checkpoint for Space Station. They're not done yet.
You just wonder if you just fell behind a little bit too far, right? SSG can most certainly make comebacks. Comebacks with the best, but Nightmare is really only going to have to win one fight here. You know, with 2:30 on the clock, one fight sends the bot back towards what, mid-map, right? And you're in a fantastic spot to win there, and you're going to lose both supports off the rip. The pulse bomb there connects onto Kuffa, but not going to be enough as SSG going to have to back out.
That is deflating stuff, especially with Admiral coming around to yet another beat, and he has been so impactful with them in this game. Crucial moments where Kuffa is, clinging to life. He's able to give him a beat and get him going and get a Nightmare. It's no rush. They may as well push this as far forward, though, as they can. Get back to parity, occupy the high ground, get their Ash in a dominant position.
You have no problem with the bot stopping here if you're Nightmare and just controlling high ground, right? And just burn clock. Just burn clock. That's kind of the name of the game. Like, obviously you would love a full map completion, but being able to control this high ground, I mean, this is such a difficult place to push into. So just controlling this high ground, forcing SSG to push into it and burning the clock, that is exactly what you want if you're Nightmare.
Zera here. Gotta respect the right clicks there. Ducks back, gets the healing. Nightmare in a power position right now. They're very favored based on how the map is laid out. Admiral, down low. We had a beat. Not that you really need to offload your ultimates in this fight if you're Nightmare, but losing your Lucio early, not great. Good sleep there, but Kellen has friends ready to follow up on the objective.
Yep, just Kuffa moves it a little bit further along. Now we'll go back to the opposite side of the map, though, as you're probably going to have a fight probably on the bridge area here for Nightmare. It's going to be on their side of the map. You're going to have the Bob available, follow up the Bob with Kuffa diving on in, right? No sleep available for CJ after that Bob comes out.
All right, Bob has been deployed. Lethal wants to work the bot here.
That's a
Makes
nasty
perfect sense.
spot
Bob going
as well.
to work on that left-hand side. CJ out of the picture already. This was supposed to be it for Space Station. The push to get them back into the game, but they're struggling, floundering, and a risk of drowning as a pulse bomb is used on Ultraviolet. They get rid of him. No, I don't know, Winston, no party here for Nightmare, but the bot's been walking away from them this entire time, as have their hopes of getting that first seed heading into China, and somehow Nightmare, in what looks like a 2 versus 4, have taken 2 kills to equalize it, and they're just happy. They're smiling, laughing all the way to the bank, slowing SSG down with a smile on their face. They know Space Station just don't have the time to do this.
And you just have to be patient here if you're Nightmare, right? Zero just going on and trying to chase. That's not what you want to see. So now you're not going to have this Tracer in the fight. Kuffa going on in. They're going to use the beat here. They're going to try and fight it.
Seeker goes down. He thought he had the best of the Winston.
Primal.
Blitz now has to beat this. Okay, able to throw it down, keep the rest of his team alive. Admiral under extreme pressure, and Sugar Free is able to take Ultraviolet out of the game. So Nightmare in disarray. Sure enough, Kuffa has to double back here. Hope to protect his support, but Ultraviolet has already gone down. Kellen, though, can come forward. Now it's about disrupting. Now it's about making it half. A Nightmare to group up as 5 and end the game. They've got Nana for their Winston, though, Matt. That's the win condition.
Yeah, I mean, the Nano's going to have to be, you're going to have to get crazy value out of this Nano here from UV onto Kuffa. Seeker, though, potentially with an overclock, right? You can just start chunking down through that Winston's HP. Maybe you hit a Lucio at range. That could be a difference maker.
No connect on the pulse.
Nano and Tracer.
Nano is dead. Chase Kellen down. The tip of the spear broken in twain. And Nightmare with the player advantage to work with. Seeker falls, and amongst the stars, all SSG find is a Nightmare they can't wake from. Out of nowhere, the unpartnered Nightmare top the NA region, top seed heading into China, and they get the big bucks. Congrats.
The #1 seed in North America is Nightmare. What started as a really nice story, right? When they end up beating Team Liquid towards the end of the season, and you're like, oh yeah, they can make some fun noise during playoffs. They end up losing in the first round to Liquid, a run back through losers to get through Liquid again, and also beat SSG to win the entire event out of the loser bracket. I mean, insane stuff from this Nightmare team. I mean, what a glow up over the last 3 weeks. I mean, they went from nice story, fringe contender to top in the region.
Yeah, it wasn't, at some point, it was no longer just knocking on the door.
Yeah.
But that story, Matt, really only evolved over the last day or so. We saw them improve, of course, but we still consider them only an outside chance, and many of us, even if that was the unspoken part, expected maybe it would just be a Liquid and SSG final. Not only do they handle Liquid, they get into a game like this, and then they just beat SSG at their own game. This Nightmare team could work around the Malga. SSG had enough hubris to try and match them on a dive composition, and Nightmare looking incredible. It is such a great story here to see this team come up in NA organically with the backing, of course, the power of friendship, and the players that were left over that weren't sort of picked up here for franchising. Some of these big money teams now looking at this team going, we made some scouting errors.
And they look, to be very strong in a lot of the different compositions. Obviously, a lot of time till the champions clash, right? But they can play Winston-based compositions. They can play Ramattra. We know that Kuffa can play things like a Sigma or a Hazard, right? It's just really maybe even that malga trying to work on it. They're going to be a really interesting, scary team come champions clash, and getting that #1 seed now, right? Finding themselves with a little bit of an easier opponent in that round 1.
They're only going to get better from here, folks. That's the exciting part. We're going to head to the desk and break down the game, the whole stage, honestly. An incredible game to close things out. We're going to leave you, of course, with the sounds of an epic Nightmare victory as we head to the desk. Thanks for listening.
Right, so I'm making it. Slide, slide, one point.
Chill.
Turn it. Slide.
Chill.
Look on us.
Let's go!
Number one.
Yeah, you can tell they are excited, as they should be. As Mitch just said at the very end there, what an incredible story for this very squad. What a great redemption arc as well. Flashback to week number 1, where in their opening match of stage 1, they played against SSG, they dropped that one 3-1, and now they end up on top of it all. And what a great series this has been. Like, couldn't have asked for a better final there. So many individuals getting some time in the sun. A few clips for the 2025 highlight reels for sure. The series went the distance. We saw so much depth in the playbook and the strats from both of these teams, Caleb.
Yeah, and ultimately it felt like it came down to the Winston mirror every time. It didn't matter the maps that played out. Like, sure, there was some Ramattra, there was some malga, but it felt like the core of the series came down to Winston Tracer, and Nightmare consistently came out on top. And like you said, the good plays on both sides. It was back and forth, but man, like these dives, looking at Zera right now, I talked about it before. We talked about Sugar Free being the best Flexi PSNA. Zera is knocking on that door. He might already be there. He is hungry, he's young, he proved it in this series. He was insane consistently, and we had Lethal with the headshots just back and forth. The Winston play on both sides, I mean, this was just an intense series. I mean, shout out to Nightmare. They played 11 maps. It was an absolute slog. I'm sure they're exhausted, but they were powerful throughout this entire series.
They're riding on vibes and adrenaline right now for sure. I mean, what a performance for them to close out stage 1. And honestly, I feel like so much of that was the heroics of the DPS lineups on both sides in order to keep their teams alive in the series or to allow for them to edge ahead. So those individual performances from Zero and Lethal were such a big standout.
Yeah, both of them, and also as well in this map, there were some crazy headshots from Seeker keeping his team inside the fight, inside the map, because if Seeker wasn't having the map he was, that would have been even more one-sided than it was. But yeah, shout out to the Nightmare DPS. They were consistently hitting above average. They were hitting their shots. They were hitting their pulse bombs, big blades, Lethal on any hit scan he played, headshots after headshots. Just insane. Shout out to Nightmare. I mean, like Mitch said, like they said, like this is the 3rd roster put together for NA. The first and second teams, they were partnered. Those were put together first. And Nightmare, they were the misfit toys. They were, and they were put together, and they just won NA. That is insane.
Yeah, so let's give them an opportunity to gloat about that, as they should. We have Zero and Lethal joining us for a quick chat after getting the dub and the #1 seed in the NA region. So first things first, of course, congratulations. This was an insane series. A long day for you guys as well. How are you feeling right now? Are you riding the high, or are you just exhausted? What's going through your head?
I don't even know what's going through my head, to be honest. I can't stop like shaking. It's a pretty insane win, I can't lie. I think I'm very proud of the lads for staying composed and doing our jobs. We did what we needed to do.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, this was light work, this game. I have to admit.
I
Take me off Surge, put me on Ash, let me run this lobby up.
You were doing that, whatever you're saying, you were doing that the entire time. Sarah, I wanted to ask you, as someone who's coached you, I want to ask about your journey over the past year. You started, honestly, started in the gutter. How does it feel to slowly work your way through all of the tribulations and the trials you've had to gone through to winning NA? How does that feel?
It's an incredible feeling, honestly. Last year, I think there was a lot of pressure on me when I started performing well and making the internationals. There was a pressure to keep on showing up at the internationals and to keep playing, like, and to keep improving, because I know how good I can be. I don't think I'm at my prime yet, so I want to keep improving. And going into this year, it was a bit demotivating, considering I wasn't picked for either of the partner teams. You know, Liquid chose to import a Korean rather than go a more Western route, which, I mean, Knife's great. Shout out to them. I love that team. But yeah, it was a bit demotivating, but I'm glad I ended up on my team because everyone is super passionate and very talented. So I'm happy.
Yeah, it's giving the ones who got away vibes like across the board. There's, I think, a lot of teams are now looking at your squad, and I was like, you should have picked up those players. Throughout the stage 1, we got to see a lot of different looks from a lot of different teams, a lot of different metas, which basically, I mean, let's be real, the meta just shifted like every week. If we're looking ahead at Championship Clash, do you have like a meta prediction? What do you think is going to be played there, and what would you prefer to play against all the Korean teams, for example?
Dennis, you want to start?
Bro, run some malga torb against them. We can see how that feels.
Bro,
or we can play. Bro, or I think we just run it by ear, to be honest, because we were more focused on taking like one step at a time. As soon as we dominate our region, then we can look to dominate other regions if we'd like. So we have to see like what they're playing and then how our boot camp is maybe.
Think the way that I look at it, I think this stage really shows our flexibility. I don't really know what's going to be meta, but I know that we will be strong no matter what it is, and I hope we can prove that in China.
I am sure you guys will be proving that. I mean, it was a phenomenal performance across the board. It was so much fun to watch you guys play as well. It's just like vibes. Like every time Nightmare takes to the server, we know we're in for a good time. Any final words from the two of you for your fans and the people who have supported you on that journey?
I'd like to shout out my family who has always been supporting me. It's my mom's birthday tomorrow, so I did it for her, and we got the birthday buff going. Yeah, overall, just super grateful for all my friends and family who encourage me to keep going every day, and I hope I manage to get MVP for this match. I don't know. We'll see.
You did.
I did? Oh my god!
Surprise!
Yay.
Yeah, player of the match.
Bro, it's just flex DPS bias, bro. I'll get my MVP once.
What do you mean?
One
I'm
day.
not even a nominee for the superstar. I'm not even a nominee.
You'll feed OTP, bro.
Not even a nominee.
With my POV, guys, please.
Nah, whatever.
Well, actually, the people we mentioned for superstars, those are not nominees. Those are just people we randomly wanted to talk about. So it's all up to chat. Chat
McGravy didn't choose to talk
out of our
about me.
hands.
I'm sorry. Hey, I have hyped you up tons today,
Might be a bit
bro.
of a hater, I don't know.
I have hyped you up tons today, bro. Tons.
You know, I'll take what I can get. It's okay.
You've had your time
Bro,
in
you
the
have
sun.
MVP awards, bro. I have nothing. I have nothing. No kill feed, no MVPs, no nominees,
You're the kill feed
nothing,
perma.
bro.
You're the
Alright,
winner of our hearts, and you get the final say. How about that? You get the final words. Anything you want to say to the fans and the people
Yeah,
supporting
don't
you?
count me out, guys. Do not count me out. You will see.
We will do. That's a threat. I love that.
Thank you, Dennis.
And with that energy, we're gonna end the interview. Thank you both so much. Once again, congratulations on winning the Stage 1 champion title, and of course, pivotal first seed in the region. So best of luck to your team in China.
Congrats, guys, and
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Alright, thank you guys for having us.